Second,
Basile, second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, apparently we're having a public hearing. Shared services. I guess we should announce the phone number, 315-948-0051. Anybody wants to call in for their service plan 2023. Is there anybody here for that wants to speak on that? Appointments, Cayuga County Water and Sewer Authority, Crystal Waters, Brian Dahl. We need to move that. Yes. All right, can I have a motion for that, please? Trish, can I have a second?
Okay, although I thought we didn't move these, I thought we waited and they only got done at the full edge.
Wasn't paying attention. What happened?
You just told me to move them.
If you're voting as a committee without a motion and a second, I don't know how you take a vote.
No, I just didn't think we voted on these and I thought we did it collectively at the full edge. I thought that was where we ended up.
You'll vote on them again, but to get the recommendation of the committee without a vote, I don't know how you do it.
Okay, I just feel like this has been inconsistent then in how we've done that. That's fine.
I was second.
Second it.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, department updates. Carl, you have no update, but do you want got anything to say or?
Yeah, I'd like to have a few minutes if I could. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of our projects. The Cayuga Lake Protection Plan, we've got a complete seeker now and a project moving forward. We're in the process of looking for, working through the bond anticipation note process. We're also looking at district formation with engineers working on that. So that's moving forward. Kind of an exciting project. It's got a good purpose, and I think it's a very doable project. And then the next project we wanted to talk a little bit about, and we talked to you last month about our regional master plan process and putting the water plant on Cayuga Lake for a second source. And we have Mark Coffey here, our financial person. At the end of the day, this gets quite intricate on the financing and the funding of it. So I'll give the floor to Mark at this point.
Yeah, if you guys want to step up to the podium, there was supposed to be a presentation on here, but I don't see it. But it's you guys.
The project, as is right now, the regional master plan was encompassing a spine line from Long Point going north through the village of Cayuga to Montezuma and into Port Byron. Once it gets to Port Byron, we have a 12-inch main already in the Port Byron area. We would be able to go through Brutus, and this would give us the capability to get to the village of Cato if the residents in the north wanted water. On the south end, we're looking at, we were very close. If we get at Long Point, it's not that far. We can get to the Cato, the King Ferry Lock District. And really, when you get to King Ferry Lock, you're not that far from Moravia. So this, when you look at this water plant being located at Long Point, we're really quite capable of servicing a large area of the county. We can service the south end of the county, you know, the King Ferry Lock, Genoa, and even Moravia if there was ever a need. And going north, it's really works quite well because if we can get to Montezuma and from Montezuma to Port Byron, we can also go as far north as Cato. As it is right now, to get started, it's a $21 million project, and I'll let Mark take the floor.
Okay. On behalf of the authority, my name is Mark Colopy, by the way, and as Carl said, I'm self-employed as a financial consultant, capital project advisor for a number of municipalities around New York, mostly in the western half of the state, from Syracuse back to Lake Erie. I've been doing this. I've been involved in local government since 1988. So I've been on both sides of the counter, which is great. Serving in a public service capacity, as well as being on the private side now. Then we have taken a look at the project, as Carl stated, and worked with some representatives of the board as well as the Cayuga County Water and Sewer Authority's engineering staff. Again, as Carl said, the project, as we're looking at it now, is around $21 million. 15 million of that is set aside for the Long Point water treatment intake and the water treatment plant. A 16-inch water line, as Carl described, would run north along Route 90 through Aurora and north. That's projected at $4 million. And there's roughly $2.1 million set aside for engineering and services, from design, all the regulatory approvals and design right through construction. We have taken a look at the overall debt weight of $21.125 million, projected out a debt service schedule over 30 years, most likely with the Environmental Facilities Corporation, in conjunction with whatever grants and other sources would be available financially for this. The annual payments, they average just over $1 million over that spectrum of 30 years. And we have described in a handout here, we've actually got extra copies for the committee. We can leave on the table. I think, Carl, you made about 12, I've got 3 in my file. So we got about 15 copies here with a narrative that describes the project, what it includes, the oversight proposed by the authority, the project benefits, and how the authority sees themselves moving forward, working with the proposed participants in this, what do you want to call it, a regional water system, but it's more of a distribution, correct?
Yes.
To primarily wholesale customers, to municipalities that are looking for that secondary source, or just simply additional source of water that isn't sufficient currently. One of the big participants, or one of the big roles that, one of the things that the authority is looking at, of course, is the CMI expansion with the Cayuga Milk Ingredients Facility. That involves a tremendous capacity and requirement as far as water goes. Currently, in the annual usage, they need about 128 million gallons of water. That would jump to 183 million gallons of water when they expand and come out. That project that they're working on now would come online by the third quarter of 2024. It's not far away. But we've taken a look at the overall gallonage usage in Springport and the CMI project. Looking at it quarterly and annually, we projected at minimum a rate of $5.75 a thousand. That would be for the Cayuga Milk Ingredients Facility. Quarterly and annually, that would be, that the revenues or receipts from that water usage by the CMI alone would cover the debt payments annually over the $1 million threshold that's required. I've done the math as far as looking at an amortization schedule. I've looked at the usage, the books. I've gotten information from CMI as well as their engineers, project engineers that are working on that project, as well as the authority, and talked with Carl, and we've gone over this together. And it certainly, the math works. Usage, the proposed rates, and the receipts, the revenue projected from this additional usage is certainly of necessity, and you need additional water, probably more importantly, a second source of water for the county. But for the industrial and economic development here, for CMI particularly, this does financially work. It does pass the mustard test, if you will, and it balances.
And in this breakdown that we figured 2.75 acres. This project, the regional master plan has been earmarked for the state intended use plan as a hardship project. It should still qualify for 0% interest. But we've added some interest in here just to be a little more realistic. I'd rather have conservative numbers and figure things worst case scenario than be overly optimistic and not have real numbers. The big benefit to this project right today, number one is first and foremost, it gives the county a second source of water. And if we can get water to Genesee Street, to the CMI plant, we can backfeed Auburn in the case of emergency. So I think the big selling point to this whole project is for the first time, the city, the county would have a second source of water. And with the Cayuga Milk Ingredients buying as much water as they're buying, it gives us an opportunity to run pipe from Aurora back to Auburn, from Cayuga Lake to the city of Auburn. And truthfully, once you get to the city of Auburn, the networks are in place to send water throughout a lot of the county, out State Street to Port Byron, Weedsport, you know, and like I said, on the south end, we're not far from King Ferry, Genoa District and the village, the town of Locke. But our numbers are conservative. Like I said, I'd rather be on the high side of my expectations than be embarrassed that I didn't really look at good hard numbers. But I think this project, as you look at it, the real strength of it is, the real benefit would be a second source for Cayuga County and the city of Auburn in case of emergency. Any questions?
Yeah, I got one. Yeah, Mark, you said you talked to the milk plant people.
Yes, we had correspondence with the milk plant people and their engineers as far as their current usage, daily usage, monthly usage, and the projected usage going forward with the new facility coming or expanded facility coming online in the third quarter of next year.
All right, and did you talk money, the $5 per thousand, did you talk?
I have
They know
not
that?
discussed the rate structure with them. Carl, have you had any communications as far as what the,
We haven't talked to them about the rate, but it's less than they're paying today.
It is.
Yes. And
Okay.
I think they'd be,
Well, I guess that was my concern. Do they know what they have to pay if this comes through?
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
and on the other side, you're looking for some sort of financial guarantee.
Right.
Because these are revenue bonds, if not mentioned already, these would be revenue bonds. So you're looking for some type of corporate surety, if you will, of involvement in the project and guarantee for over a period of time.
Yes.
There are current, Cayuga Milk Ingredients is a current customer of Auburn at this point in time.
well, the town of Arena gets, and they're supplied by Auburn.
Yes, and that will stay. It's the expansion that will be
Additional,
additional, that would not take the business from,
no,
okay, but when it expands, then the revenue would come to water and sewer.
right, and right now, the water authority through the IDA might supply the expansion starting in July, August, September of 2024. Till this project got up and running, we would be buying that additional water through the city also.
And the city is aware, they sit on your water and, there's a
Yeah.
representative.
Yes.
And this is the master plan, but the current ARPA ask is what and for what?
The current ask is really, we need a little help with the engineering work. The engineering work is almost $2 million or a little over $2 million.
It's about $2.1 million, yes.
Right.
This
So-
is the treatment for the,
This is to put the new water plant in at Long
Okay,
Point.
yep.
And the engineering work to get the pipe back to Springport to send water back to Auburn.
it's the design, the first phase of the design that's needed to move
Yes.
everything forward.
Right.
And I understand that legally, they need to take a look at, quantify and make sure that the existing seeker covers the new phase of the project, the redesign of the project, from the regional plan as it was to more of a spine in Route 90 service area in CMI. Then they would go through regulatory approval with their design and proposed project. DOH primarily, DOT, of course, and any other involved agencies. You're absolutely correct.
Nothing can happen without this particular beginning phase of the work.
That's true.
Okay.
Right.
How confident are you that if you have everything you need to go, that the engineering and the actual laying of pipe can happen by the third quarter of 24.
Well, this project would not be done in time for the milk plants. So we have another project that we're working on right now, running water from McDonald's on Genesee Street, that's tapping into the city line, going to the milk plant. So there's two projects here. The one project we're capable of doing in-house, but this one being so much larger, we just need some help. And truthfully, that's part of the problem at the water authority, is we're revenue based. We only have the funds that we make running our systems. So this is a large reach for us on our own. Hey, Jim?
Yes, so to get to step one, to the ARPA fund part, which is only about 50% of what you need, what's the plan for the other 50%? Because I know, I don't know, but my experience has been when you go for grants and other things, if you have a completed design, that's a whole lot. That moves you up in the process quite a bit. What's the plan for the other 1.1 million?
We would have to borrow the money.
So it would be a ban or a note.
Would that be then rolled into the construction
That would be,
when you have to do the rest?
or you can take it out, as you said, by grant sources.
Anyone else? All right, is that all you got?
Yes, well, thank you for your time, and I'll leave some of our financial plans here on the table.
Right down front here, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Bill.
There's about 15 copies, I think, in here. I hope enough to get around at least the committee. Thank you for your time.
What, no, I'm sorry, what was the ARPA ask?
I thought it was 1 million.
That was my impression.
Yeah,
It's 1 point. What is the ARPA ask specifically that you're requesting for?
We would like the $2 million for the total engineering cost. If Andy can be patient with me, the county has been trying to get a second source of water back from when Ralph Stanbrook was chairman. He put in a line from Fort Byron to Onondaga County with the idea that Onondaga County was going to furnish us with water for a second source. After he put that water line in, Onondaga County said they did not want to sell water to us because it would compete with them for development. But you have spent several $100,000 on this program already, and the way that we can get it done now is with the ARPA funds that would help us with the engineering plus the milk plant. This is the first time in all the years that I've been involved with it that we have a possibility of getting it done. And so I'm trying to push for as much of those ARPA funds as we can get.
and the engineering cost is over 1 million,
The total is
2.1, okay.
just over $2 million.
Okay, and that's what I was trying to get at, what,
I feel like that's what we have discussed as a committee.
I mean, we can visit it. But I thought-
And unfortunately, as Jim alluded to, without the engineering work done, you really don't get anyone you don't have anything to show anybody as far as grant assistance or any of that work.
By spending your money on the engineering, it could be spent well within your time frame for having it spent. And in order to get the permits from the state to put the pumping station in there, we've done the preliminary work already, and they have kind of approved it, but they will not give us the actual approval until we do the full engineering on the pumping station, and that was the $1.5 million. And this really can't go forward until we do get the permit from the state.
so $1.5 million for the design, and what's the other thing that gets to 2?
The other 600,000 approximately is to put the water line from there on to where the current line is in Springport.
Okay, so it's the
Pipeline work.
design and the pipe.
It's
Yeah.
a 16-inch wide, 16-inch diameter line.
Is that the information that's up there? Do we have this, is contained in these documents?
Yes, actually on the amortization schedule, the first page, there's a budget there that shows that line by line, how much of it's for the plant, how much water line, how much is it for the engineering, the two different segments that we've just talked about, the 1.5 and roughly 600,000.
Dave,
Yeah, the last time you were here, I think, gentlemen, that you said there was a cutoff date or there was a date that you needed to know sometime soon.
Yesterday.
So is there a cutoff date?
Uh,
Don't tell a liar.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
man,
kidding.
your buddy.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That's why she wore that red shirt. Can't see the blood.
We're spending quite a
That's what
lot
the
of
red coats
money
were,
on
red
this, and we're crazy to continue spending it if there is not the possibility of getting this done. And when we was here before, you specifically told me we had to prove that we were going to be able to have the revenue to pay for it,
Yep.
which is what we tried to do. We got our bond counsel, and he wants to work with a financial advisor, and the two of them work together to get to this point on it. So we tried to do what you asked us to do a month ago.
Yes, we actually had a conference call with Mark and Trespass back on the 31st of October. Rick Albato was also involved in that corporate counsel for the authority to go over and review all of this. And Bill essentially, gave us our marching orders and said what you said, I believe, at your last meeting. You need to go out and put this on paper and prove that this can be done and that you have enough revenues or receipts
Right.
to pay for that debt service, to do the project and see it through over the long term lifespan.
And that's in that paperwork.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You know, that is a lot of work that had to get done. I appreciate that. I do.
We all appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for considering this again, and hopefully we can get to the point where we can see it getting started. Thank you, David.
Herb, you've been up here so many times. You want to run for ledge again? Or what?
Not a chance.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
all right, Kyle, do you have anything to add to your,
I have nothing to add to my written report.
does anybody got anything for Kyle? Okay, if not, Gary.
Okay, well, you have my report. I do want to call attention to just a couple items on the report. I highlighted under the committee report, administration, number 4. We do need to come to grips with the code enforcement officer. I know the county's working on it. Apparently, it's got to be an appointment of the legislature, or it's got to be an intermunicipal agreement with some other municipality. But we do need to have a supportive code enforcement officer. One example of this would technically be the county attorney's office has been working on the RICO agreement to tear down and demolish the pergola that was approved last month, item 5 on my list. And theoretically, I should have a demolition permit to tear that down. The only other things, let's see. I did want to mention that Ed and his crew have been working with the health department to do some work over in their area where they had some grant money apparently to spend. That's been quite a bit of work. That's item 4 under Ed's work. And I will mention that buildings and grounds overtime budget will be going over. If you look at number 2 under the public safety building, we're now down 2 vacant building maintenance mechanic positions. And I've been unsuccessful in hiring anybody. So the bad news is we're over on the overtime budget. The good news is we're going to be under on salaries because we have nobody there. So that's a problem. Also, I just want to mention, I want to thank the highway department. They installed a culvert, did some work on the backup access road to the public safety building that runs across the old nursing home property. The culvert had a hole in it and it was presenting a danger, and they came and replaced the culvert for us and did some work there. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Anybody got any questions for? All right, I got one that's for you and this whole code enforcement. What are we doing?
Currently, it's under the county attorney's office, but Chris, can you talk more on what your game? Code enforcement?
It's a public office, and at one point in time, there was some controversy between, there was a county manager at the time, I think, former clerk of the ledge and the former code enforcement officer just all not getting along, and the legislature decided that they were going to take what would otherwise be by local law, a public office, residency requirements, swearing an oath, setting the salary, et cetera, and decided to contract that out. And that has gone on for quite a long time, primarily to satisfy the village of Cato, who has properly opted out of enforcing New York State Building and Fire Code. The process for opting out is you pass a local law saying you don't want to do it. Wait till I think it's January of the following year, and then the state Department of State takes it over. They do all the code enforcement work at a very, very high cost. County had decided at some point that they didn't want to have a code enforcement officer, a public officer. They wanted to do it by contract, which in my head is kind of similar to saying you take legislative seats and contract those out to people that you think are qualified. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. That's not how you fill public offices. And you certainly don't put a public officer under the jurisdiction of another public officer. Nowhere, and it has been located in the county attorney's office, nowhere does the county attorney, should they have any authority over issuing stop work orders or any number of other things that a public officer will be able to do.
I guess that's my question. I mean, where we legally have to have somebody.
You should, or you should opt out, one of the two, and do it properly.
And if we opt out, then the state takes over
Correct.
for the entire county.
Yeah, well, but don't forget each municipality, they also have public officers, code enforcement officers, with the exception of the village of Cato.
So
City of Auburn has them, and there's no, it's not like the county is higher than the city or any of the towns or the villages. The state says that they should work cooperatively together. So since all of the towns and villages have code enforcement officers, there's no reason that they can't do the inspections or issue the permits that we are looking for. We have a new code enforcement officer.
Except Cato, right, Chris?
Except the village of Cato, but as far as I know, there's no county, maybe a 911 tower, but I don't think there is anymore. I'm not sure of that, so
the county was doing their code enforcement.
we still are by contract. By contract, because we're obligated to, even though we have not opted out.
So basically, we either need to opt out or get a code enforcement officer.
Correct.
Because it's been going on for quite a while.
Very long time.
Not being fully aware of this since Cato was part of District 1. And not understanding that this is the sole reason we have code enforcement is for the village of Cato.
No, every municipality in the state is obligated to enforce the New York State Building and Fire Code.
I'm asking the county though, the sole.
County is a municipality. I mean,
So we have to have a code.
we do. Yeah, because the law says if one of those other jurisdictions, the towns or villages opt out, it falls to the county. And we certainly could do our own building inspections, fire inspections, issue our own permits. But again, that public office, that's why it's a public office, because they need to be independent a little bit from the legislature. They don't want to have a person saying, winking and nod, you're going to pass this. You don't want to be put in that position.
Not at all. Code enforcement officers should not be put in that position.
Right.
Be allowed to do their job.
That's why it should be an independent public office.
Chris, let me get this straight. If we opt out, what happens to Cato? Should state take over Cato too?
As well as county, code enforcement, The state would handle both of them.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. So other than Cato, us being the county, having a code enforcement officer would just be for our own construction? Say for the public safety building when it goes on, or would that be handled by whatever the municipality it's in? Or do they defer to us when the county building goes on?
There is no higher or lower level of authority between the code enforcement officers. They're supposed to work cooperatively together, but there is nothing that says, county, you're gonna have superior jurisdiction than the town of Senate or wherever you.
Now, maybe, let me rephrase that. I understand what you're saying. other than the town of Cato,
Village.
the village of Cato that we're supporting, as a county, we're supposed to have a code officer. What else would they do? What would be their duties other than covering?
Go ahead, Gary.
They would do all the code enforcement work for the actual county. For
County
example,
buildings.
And
Yeah.
that's
for
what I was
county
asking.
buildings. and-
So they would do our fire inspections.
Correct.
They would do,
That's
okay.
correct.
And Jim, if I may add in, we do have a local law, it's number 3 of 2007. For the creation of the Office of a Code Enforcer. I haven't fully read through it yet, but it does go through all the powers in which a code enforcement officer would have.
Yeah.
So
If you find
We had
it, could you send that to me?
I can.
We had a code officer several years ago, Gerard Revolt. It's not anymore, but I guess my question to Chris is why is it so hard to get a code officer and we hire a code officer? Because if we don't and the state does it and we opt out, we want something done, state takes forever. We know that. We won't get somebody in here if we want to build something right.
Like I said, there is no superior jurisdiction. If you're building something in the city, there's nothing that says you can't use the city's code enforcement officer to issue your permits. There is no higher jurisdiction.
Gary?
Yeah, Shereen and David asked me to contact Jeff Tiger, talk to Jeff Tiger last week to ask him if they'd be interested in providing help to us in that area. And he was gonna look into it, get back to me. He hasn't yet. He said, give me a few days. However, my understanding is that it would require an intermunicipal agreement in order to make it legal.
If we want to fill that public office on the county side with one of their employees, then yeah, you do need to have an intermunicipal agreement. Otherwise, if you just want to have them look at whatever's within their municipal boundaries, you don't need it for that.
So even if it's a county property, we don't need them for that. So I could,
And if it's in the town of Senate, you could use their code enforcement. Town of Wasco, use theirs. Sterling, you could use Jonathan Anna. He's the code enforcement officer. He's been appointed. Took an oath.
okay.
Do that for you as well.
Because Jeff seemed to think that it would probably require an intermunicipal agreement, but you're saying it does not.
Not to do an inspection or issue a permit within their
In
municipal
their
jurisdiction.
municipality, correct.
Right.
I agree with that.
Okay.
But if you wanted to ask the city's code enforcement office to go out and handle Cato for you, or to inspect a property in Troop, I'm just making up towns, then yeah, you absolutely would need an intermunicipal agreement, because otherwise that code enforcement officer does not have any authority outside of the city of Auburn or outside of whatever town they work for. You could have,
But do they actually have jurisdiction on county property within the city or within the town?
there is no have jurisdiction, as long as it's within the city boundary, city and the county share jurisdiction. And the law says you are supposed to work cooperatively. There is no higher or lower. So if the county enforcement officer issues a permit, that's all you need. If the city enforcement officer issues a permit, that's all you need. You don't need one or the other, depending on who owns it. Otherwise, we get into a whole big problem with things like the IDA that, they own property for a little bit, and then that would just be an awful situation.
All right, I'll call Jeff again tomorrow and try to follow up and find out if he wants.
And if you want to.
Okay.
Hans?
The one thing I would recommend is staying away from the state of New York. We tried it in Genoa back years ago, and it was a disaster. Somebody had to come from Syracuse, time scheduled, et cetera, et cetera. It was an absolute disaster.
So is this an appointed position, Chris?
And part-time or whatever, whatever,
It's a public office, so I mean,
you set a salary and
yeah.
And there will lie your problem in hiring somebody.
It is, they're hard to
But
find.
every municipality in the state goes through is hiring code enforcement officers, because they're like the low man on the totem pole. Everybody has to have them, but nobody wants to pay them. Yet they're responsible when they sign a fire permit or building permit they carry all of the responsibility. So it's hard to find them.
Well, glad I brought that up.
Yeah.
All right, you want to do your resolutions?
Okay. Got three resolutions today. First one, PW1, authorizing the modernization of the Cayuga County Office Building elevators and authorizing the use of ARPA funds to cover the cost.
You can have a motion for PW1.
Second,
Second, Christina, any questions? Jim?
I want to be sure I'm understanding. So this initial resolution is for just getting the bids in and stuff and
The original,
walk me
when
through
the
this.
when the department head is required to do a resolution, we send it to the resolutions group. And sometimes they go through without too much problem, but other times they get modified drastically. I had originally asked for to allow this to be awarded by the chair of the legislature following the competitive bid process. In this particular case, because of the dollar amount involved, the county attorney's office felt that we really should go ahead and get the bids, authorize the ARPA funds, and then give do a second resolution, hopefully in December, if I get all the work done. Well, we won't be able to now, it'll be January. But to actually award it and sign the contract with whoever it would be. So it will be a two-step process.
so I'm sorry, so this resolution, we're just earmarking that we're going to make this money available to you, and so then when the bills come in.
Yeah. Yeah, to authorize the use of ARPA funds and to direct the director of purchasing to go out to bid.
To go out to bid.
Total cost of the project.
Which we'll do anyway.
Which they get, yeah, sorry. I don't know if it would be, I would like to see this have an amendment to it to say up to $750,000. We have cost estimates from engineers. Again, what are we gonna wait for the next time the elevator breaks down? It's still gonna be 24, 26 weeks. They gotta order it. To me, it seems like we're, at least give us give the man the opportunity to up to a certain amount. If it goes over that, then maybe it needs to be evaluated, but
Isn't that what's happening?
what I
Did he
understand,
use
unless I'm misunderstanding
$750,000
this,
of ARPA funds to do the project?
we're saying that, but
So, but I've got to do a second resolution to actually authorize the project.
that's,
What?
The way it's set up right now. And one last, just to throw another wrench in the works, we had a meeting today with Bergman. Jim, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it. But basically, what Bergman suggested, perhaps, well, all right, Jim and I know we've got another problem to deal with. That's asbestos in the elevator. Okay. I'm not completely sure myself how you're going to abate asbestos in an elevator that goes up and down 6 floors and make it safe for the employees to occupy the building at the same time. I'm not completely sure in that process. My thought process was, okay, we're looking at renovating the county office building. We're going to add whatever option you choose that are currently being presented for modifying this building. It's going to require a new elevator because you got to bring it up to code. The current elevators don't meet code because you can't put a gurney in there. Okay. Also, our staircase don't meet the current code. So we're going to have to add whatever option we choose to renovate this building. We're going to have to add an elevator and staircase onto this building, right? So my thought was, okay, if we get this going, so we know what we got to do to repair the elevators, we can get somebody to order the parts. We get a decision on the county office building. The very first thing we do is get that new elevator built and the staircase. And then by the time the parts come in for this, hopefully that one will be operational and we can shut those two down and seal it off tight so no asbestos can escape, get the asbestos abated and go from there. The other possibility is encapsulating the asbestos. I don't like doing that because if you're running a heavy piece of equipment around, you can always ship some encapsulation away and now you got asbestos again. But that's another option, but I don't know the answer to that yet. So I guess what I'm saying is, I guess I'm not completely ready to go on this because I don't know, but if at least if we know the money's coming from ARPA, that's a step in the right direction. And you're telling the purchasing director to go ahead and get prices to get these elevators modified. So we really know accurately what that's going to cost.
If I may. And the reason why, so it was my decision to remove the awarding aspect of it, only in the idea that with $750,000, that is a lot of money. This resolution would allocate it so that Lynn can do her budget side of it of knowing how much ARPA funds are remaining and things like that, move that forward. There is a special ledge meeting in the early part of December to discuss the budget. Pending on when he gets the bids back, he can review them thoroughly and advise the board properly. And then if it is before that special ledge meeting, possibly put it on there. So it is a quicker turnaround. But just with the extensive size of it and the project, after speaking with Gary, it was just my recommendation that the ledge be informed of what bids were coming forward and what his path was going to be.
What did you expect?
We haven't even gone out to bid yet, so we're talking about, it's gonna be a month before we can go out to bid, get the bid package together, go out to bid and get bids back. So we're gonna be talking about January before we would be able to approve the final project.
Gary, you said one stairwell you were gonna bring up to code or all?
So we're gonna, the current plans for the building are to build a stairwell that meets code and a elevator shaft at the same time and attach it to the building. Undetermined, because you guys got to approve all that too, but that's what the plan is right now. So it would be an additional stairwell. Now, they plan on actually utilizing this back staircase, okay? Filling that in basically and making that into usable floor space on every floor. So there'd still be two stairwells. One would meet code, the other one would not. Well, that's the plan.
All right, so basically, we pass this tonight, we're passing this saying we're going to use ARPA money, but we're not sure.
Well, I think we're definitely gonna, yes, we're gonna need money, that's for sure of.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's gonna be at least this much. So that way, at least Lynn and everybody knows where's the money coming from for this part of the project.
All right, can I?
So you're saying that these projects are gonna move forward at totally different timeframes. We're allocating this money for repair of those two elevators so that you can go and order parts, but you actually see the new elevators being fully constructed before that we're ready to go on the repairs.
That's what I'm hoping.
So, and I like Gary, but hope is not a plan.
Yeah. Well,
you need the plan to fix these two elevators. Whoever's left here. You're gonna have what you had happen once already, and you may not be able to fix it at all. So all I'm saying is, I'm all for this resolution and getting moving. Whatever happens after that, we put ARPA money aside for a children's park before I became a legislator, $1 million. Whatever happened to that? Nothing. There's a children's park would be a lot easier to fundraise for than two elevators for the county office building. So all I'm saying, we'll get this moving. I hope that the next group understands the urgency of fixing that, because you'll have one, if they go down again, you might as well shut them both down, take the asbestos out and finish them. Because the county office building that they've been talking about since 2001, 22 years ago, is still under review. And it would be wishful thinking that for that plan, that's a great plan, but hope is not a plan. So this building, if you're gonna stay in this building, you need to fix those elevators. Ask the employees, ask the employees that had to share one elevator for how many weeks, months?
And I'll go one step further. We're one step away from no elevator. That's the real problem. Now we got no elevator. That's what scares me.
I'm confused now. This is to fix the current elevators that we have so they stay functional. After we fix them for 750,000 or whatever, we're gonna replace them.
No.
No.
No, the other elevator we're talking about is required because those elevators don't meet code. They're not large enough to put a gurney in. When you modernize a building to this extent that we're proposing to do, you would have to have a code compliant elevator. Now,
In
if we
addition
don't,
to what we're gonna fix.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's where I was
Yes,
getting.
but those will stay intact and they'll be
Yep.
utilized and hopefully they'll work for
Yep.
many years.
And just to link to that point, working with Gary and the engineer, these elevators would transfer into the new renovations. And we looked at things like card readers, and cameras and things like that, that would be in the elevator and ready for upgrade with our IT systems and so forth. So that when people access the building, your badge may be a little bit different. Your badge may have a chip in it that says you're only allowed to go to the third, fourth floor. Or whatever. So we tried to take a look at all the advancements in elevators so that it would not be just fixing these elevators, but that they would be prepared for the county office building renovations and accessibility, limiting accessibility for some people while allowing others to use the building as they need it.
Well, it's kind of like the second source of water. We've talked about that since Jesus was a baby. I mean, this is what government does best, so.
In the 20 years that I've been here, we have never come this close to actually making it, getting a proposal for this body to vote on as far as this building is concerned. So I'm cautiously optimistic that that will continue, that urgency will continue.
All right, so did we have a motion on this?
Yes.
I thought so. It's been a while. Seems like a week. All right, any other questions or concerns, or can we vote on it now? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's hope 2 and 3 are a little.
Okay, BW2, authorize the superintendent of buildings and grounds to create and fill 2 working foreman positions and abolish the 2 existing building maintenance supervisor positions with the Cayuga County Buildings and Grounds Department.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second, Basile.
All right. Questions? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
BW3, authorize the superintendent of buildings and grounds to fill a full-time building maintenance mechanic position to replace a full-time building maintenance mechanic position who retired.
I have a motion.
I'll move it.
Second, Basile.
Questions on this one? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, anything more, Gary?
Oh, that's enough.
One way to put it.
Thanks, Tim.
Good.
Got my report for the month in front of you. Actually have an interesting update. Yesterday I received email that said that our main distribution panel for power for the Story Nature Center has left South Carolina. So I was gonna send the sheriff down there and see if you could just escort it, make sure you're all the way back up here.
She was going if I could stay there for a week.
Yeah, don't worry, Sam, whatever it takes.
Move it.
So it'll be that'll be some place. The rest of that building construction is really wrapping up now, so we're pretty excited to see the actual power go on, not just the temporary power. Other than that, there was a lot in there, but I do have a few resolutions, so if there I answer any questions, I guess, on what's in the report.
Okay, anything? All right, then let's go to your resolutions.
In the Parks and Trails Committee meeting, we talked a little bit about a bridge. It's a bridge replacement at Emerson Park.
Yep.
What's the plan for the future for that?
So the bridge replacement that we have on the Deauville Island on the Fleming side, we put in a Northern Border Regional Grant this year for it. We didn't get that grant information. We put that in at the end of the summer. So I just asked the vendor for an updated number on what the bridge cost, when the bridge cost changes and things like that. And then I'll put a request into the ARPA committee. That would be the next step for that bridge replacement.
Do we have an estimated cost on that?
Yeah, it was we put it in for the Northern Border Grant, regional grant was between $450,000 and $550,000. The bridge and the site work around it and some establishment of some accessible parking on that side of the park that we don't currently have.
And the reason for the upgrade for the bridge?
It's to do any of the work that is planned for the island and any of the current stuff that we have going on. And we're hauling concrete out there last week, and the construction for the shelter started this week. So that goes across a bridge that was built for the construction of the seawall in 1999.
I'm asking just so everyone gets the information. Thank you.
All right. Authorizing a 3-year agreement with the Friends of Emerson Park, 2024, 25, 26.
I'll move it.
In a second,
Second, Basile.
any questions?
I have a question about that. I'm just curious why we're gonna enter into this before the budget has been done.
Sure, we'd like to get this into the rotation so that they could actually do the booking in September and October, November of the previous year. By the time we get to the end of the year or January or February, last year they had trouble booking some of the acts that were already there. Their booking calendar tends to be right after the summer season, honestly, is when a lot of them will start contracting. So they'd like to get a scenario set up so that they're working in the following year to make sure they had the pick of the acts. And that trickles down to also any of the vendors that they have associated with the event. So any of the food trucks, they're already setting their schedules for next year. What they've found in the previous years is that when they're making the requests in February and March, there's fewer available to them. So we'd like to get them further out and have a multi-year agreement would allow us to do that.
And so just one follow-up to that then, do you have this in your preliminary like budget that you moving forward? Okay.
Doug, can you talk a little bit about the fundraising plans? And are they looking to get to a point where these costs are offset through fundraising, or is this sort of a baseline contract moving forward for them?
I mean, right now, we're just treating it as a promotion contract. I wouldn't really want to speak for them as far as their outcomes, although I will tell you that they're working closely with us now on the playground side of, in other words, they have engaged at least one vendor in putting a preliminary plan and a layout so they can get some pricing so they can start to do the fundraising side for the playground. So obviously the seed money that they're generating right now is matched to that, matched to grants that they would like to apply for, do those. So, I mean, this is a piece of programming that we would like to continue to put on, but really can't do it without their logistical support. And the bodies and the volunteers that they bring to it would cost us a lot more people and time and labor for it. So just as if we were going to have a large ticketed concert, we would go out and hire a promoter to do that. This is just kind of, it really is discrete to that concert series. Like they're going to book all the bands and all of the vendors and do those things that I don't really have the staff in-house to send somebody out to do all that organization. So I had to take advantage of their resources to do that.
Any other questions?
This really isn't a question, but I want to report on how we did with the parking fees and all that stuff, and it was like zero impact.
I'm sorry?
The parking fees and so forth we talked about last year and how it didn't really have an impact on usage of the park and so forth.
Oh, that we instated this year? Yes, we did start charging this year for parking at all of the contracted events, so all the large events that we run. So on a Tuesday, for example, when there's nothing going on, there isn't a parking fee, but when we have staff there, when we're organizing parking and have to do traffic control and things, we did charge this year and had a negligible amount of negative feedback, which was great that we were charging more. We charged $5 a car in the history of the park. We've charged $2 all the time. So we made a significant increase in what we were charging for folks at park, and the overall feedback was great. Keep doing more programming. There was value on those days and people didn't mind paying for the parking. People came in and literally, I think we had 2 complaints that I'm aware of through all of the events that we did this summer on the installation of a parking fee, because we haven't had one since 2019.
I just wanted to be sure that people understood that.
Yeah, thank you.
Paid for parking.
They did.
Wasn't an issue.
All right, so PW7, anything else? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, PW8, authorization implementation of parking fee policy, or what you were just talking about.
I'll move it.
Second, Basile.
Any questions there? You just answered. If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, PW9, authorizing the purchase of a pickup truck and plow for the Parks and Trails Department. I have a motion.
I'll move it.
Okay, Christina, Hans, you can second. Any questions? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? W10, authorize expenditures of funds from contingent account for repairs to the merry-go-round theater roof.
Move it, Basile.
Second, Clarko.
Questions on that? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, anything else, Doug? All right, Brian.
I get my report. Only thing I'd like to add is improvements are going along good. IT started with the network today. The other thing I'd like to add is I've been working with Brittany and Amanda in purchasing, getting our bids ready for commodities, because we're gonna try bidding a few more things this year that we need to stay compliant.
Has anybody got any questions for Brian on his report?
Wait, just one.
Yes.
How's the new motor pool manager working out?
Good so far. He's still there.
After 2 years, is he all right? We at least we kept him 2 months.
That's right, good breathing stuff.
All right, so you got two resolutions.
I have three.
Oh, three, excuse me. Yeah.
PW4 is the one we talked about last month. That was gonna submit for the Long Hill Road project for the ARPA fund request.
Can I have a motion?
Move it, Basile.
Second. Jim? Questions? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, PW5.
PW5 is authorizing the chair to enter into the agreement for the Church New York project on Jericho Road.
I'll move it.
Can I have a second? Second, Hans. All right, this will require 2/3 of the full wedge, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, PW6.
PW6 is the purchase of the 12-ton trailer to move our equipment up. That was budgeted before.
I'll move it.
Second, Basile.
Any questions on this? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else, Brian?
Nope.
All right, so back to the public hearing. It's been an hour now. Assuming we never got any phone calls, if we start. So I guess we can close that, so the public hearing is closed for this shared service plan. All right, so we've got wedge 1 of 2000, or the 12 and 13-year-old hunting license 1. Motion. Forward.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now I need a motion for executive session
I'll move it.
for pay, do it right, for the employment history of a particular person. All right, Christina, have a second.
Second, Basile.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, caucus room 1.
Second, Basile.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Oh, I wanted to.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You're done.
Okay, JPS in about 2 or 3 minutes, soon as we can make sure everybody's here for our quorum, and then we will commence.
I'll move them.
I have a motion, need a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any corrections? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Don't have any appointments, so we will step right into department updates, 911, Denise.
Good evening. You have my report. Just a couple of things to highlight on the report. I did attend our 911 coordinator conference back in October. We had a wonderful presentation by a gentleman who used to work in law enforcement. He talked a lot about PTSD in dispatch and how the calls impact dispatchers. We also had some great discussions amongst my colleagues across the state about dispatcher retirement. As you know, it's 30 years right now. So that's something that we want to work on, and we're going to work on lobbying at the state level to try to get 25 for the dispatchers. That's obviously going to impact us countywide, but 30 years is just too long to sit in that seat. The other discussion that we had across the state was looking at dispatch salaries. Statewide, they don't really align with what the requirements are of that job at this point. So that's something else that we want to work on, and look at the qualifications, the requirements, the expectations, and what it means to sit in that seat. Grant awards, those are on my report. We did get our SEEK and our PSAP awards for the year. I am working with the state on the PSAP award. That was just awarded in October, and we have to spend it by December 31st. So it doesn't give us a lot of leeway with that funding to do a lot with, but as of right now, it's got to be spent by the end of the year. But no worries, we'll make sure that we don't lose that funding. The last thing I want to talk about is we recently had a dispatcher who really what we would say saved a life. We had an infant who had fallen in a pool. The grandmother found I think he was like two, unconscious. And then with the dispatcher walking her through the beginning stages of CPR, and thankfully we had a deputy very, very close by the saving grace. So between the two of them, they really did save a life. So we are going to recognize them for their life-saving efforts. I think that's all I have. If anybody has anything for me.
Anybody have anything for Denise, other than go ahead and jump right into your resolution?
Okay. Let's see.
AP one.
Yeah, sorry. Too many papers. All right, JP1 is to, this is to accept the PSAT grant.
Need a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I guess I was under the impression that there were some questions about the timing and whether you get an extension or not. Getting $9,000 into a training line and the grant at the end of December.
Yeah, so if we can't get the extension, it's just gonna have to all be used to offset personnel expenses.
Oh, so
And I'll just redirect the state funding to that.
So this is, you're gonna accept this money that wasn't part of your budget or no?
Correct. Part of it, we had budgeted some of it, so we'll just offset what we hadn't budgeted.
Okay, so
Same thing with the SEEK grant. We had put some money in there, but we did not budget the full amount, so Lynn has to adjust the budget for that.
so this resolution, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it can be, the hope would be it would be adjusted, but if it's not adjusted, you'll find a way to spend that $9,000.
Yeah, well, it'll offset expenses of my budget, yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion on JP one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP two.
JP2 is to accept the statewide interop grant in the amount of $705,292.
I can go second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on JP two? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP three, please.
JP3 is to authorize the chair to sign a contract with, excuse me, Global Medical Response. This is to help alleviate some of the medical calls in the county. With AMR leaving the county, that's going to leave a big gap in our EMS response. I know Riley has talked a lot about that. The goal of this program is to triage your low priority calls that are not necessarily your alpha, anything of high priority would not go to this nurse navigator. Calls of low priority would be transferred to the nurse navigator. They would triage on their end and hopefully get those people out of the system to avoid sending an ambulance to things like a subtow or, excuse me, things of low priority.
Move it for discussion.
Have a motion for discussion. I need a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Questions? Go ahead, Andy.
So where is this nurse navigator?
They're actually located in Texas, so it's a phone call that you're gonna transfer them to somebody on phone.
Your dispatcher will say, hang on a second, we're transferring.
Correct, yep. And if they triage it and think that it's something that needs to be dispatched, they'll send it back to us.
Transfer it back.
Yeah.
Lane?
Was this in existence prior to, or this is the first time we're gonna be putting this on?
So there are other counties across the state that use
But AMR, I was initially thinking AMR was doing it, now they won't, but no, we have not done it.
We've never
at
done
all.
this, no. We've
So-
dispatched everything.
So this is new and this is a really, hopefully decent strategy to
Right.
try to get rid of some of the
Right.
unnecessary calls.
Yep. So we perform emergency medical dispatch, which is where we take them through a series of questions.
Right.
And based on those questions, that'll tell us whether or not we can transfer that call off.
Okay, so you'll still do those questions, but then you'll transfer it on for a medical opinion,
Yep.
sort of. if
Exactly,
meets
that's exactly what it
criteria.
is. It's they're gonna decide whether or not that should be dispatched or not.
So I got a follow-up question then. What's the cost associated, and have you kind of done analysis where this would probably
So-
save us considerably from? dispatching everything out?
So this is kind of one of those things, if you don't know, you don't know. Until we try it, we won't know how many calls it pulls out of our system. The cost associated is in the resolution, so it's, there's a $60,000 setup fee, and basically what they do is they take all of our EMD codes, and it's associated with those, whether or not we can transfer that call. And then there's a monthly fee of $10,500, and it's based on call volume. So I had to give them our call volume for EMS calls annually, and then break it down monthly, and that's how they assess the fees. So we're kind of on the lowest end of that spectrum.
This is 186 for next year, $186,000 for the calendar year next year. And you'll be able to evaluate even
Yes.
more.
Yeah, and we will, obviously, we're gonna evaluate it on a monthly basis, and based on that will be whether or not I recommend it for next year.
I don't think this is a bad idea. I'm just curious if any of the other municipalities that are currently using it could give us maybe a little bit of feedback of what they saw after they implemented it.
So I have spoken to Onondaga and Monroe counties, and both, they're larger counties, so it's tough. They have found great benefit, which is kind of what led me down this path.
Okay.
Will we, being a smaller county, it's hard to say. But again, until we try it, we won't really know.
And this will dispatch only for the county. This won't be in place even though you dispatch for Auburn, or it will?
It'll be for the countywide. We
Okay,
dispatch
so
for all agencies.
Auburn ambulance as well as
It will be,
outside
correct.
will be
Yep.
having access to it.
Yes.
That leads me to another question. Could that be considered a shared service then?
That's a Lynn question.
That's a good idea.
Lynn is gonna be in for the budget in a few minutes after this meeting, so that certainly. I believe,
That would be a good idea.
I don't know if it would or not.
One more quick thing, will the cost vary then on call volume from year to year?
So, no, because we're on the lowest end, so we still had some room, even if our call volume increased, the cost really probably won't change for us unless they raise their costs next year.
Any other discussion on JP3? Hearing none? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Anybody have anything else for Denise? 911?
I assume this is part of your next year's budget already.
Yes.
In the budget. Lynn, I didn't realize you were on. Could this be a shared service? She's on there, but maybe she's muted. We'll ask her.
Okay.
It is in the budget, though. We did put it in the budget.
Coming in for the.
I hear footsteps in the hall.
Thank you, Denise.
Okay.
Next up, signed council. We are blessed with two. We have Boyd and John. Mr. Price, I think, is gonna.
Good evening. So you all have a report. Nothing unusual. 63 cap arraignments, total was 64 pencil first appearance. Arraignments, once again, all of those are covered by the grant from ILS. A total of 63 criminal assignments, 45 family court assignments. Our legal expenses for the year listed out. The good news is obviously October has been lower than September. Other than that, any questions?
Do I have any questions for signed council? Hearing none. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Next up will be the coroner, Dr. Duckett. I don't see him on the computer and I have no. Oh, wait a minute. That?
Gary.
Gary.
Wrong Duckett. Sorry.
Right family, wrong Duckett.
Next up, District Attorney Brittany.
Good evening, everyone. You do have my report. I just wanted to point out some of the interesting statistics that we got from DCJS for the first quarter of 2022 and 2023. You can see that statewide arrests increased 16% in the first quarter compared to the second quarter of 2022. In Cayuga County, they only increased by 5% in the first quarter compared to 2022. Felony arrests in Cayuga County were actually up 10% and misdemeanor arrests stayed fairly consistent, about 2%. We had 107. Oh, the interesting thing about that is we had an increase in property crimes and DWIs in this county. So those did increase pretty significantly. Property crimes, not surprising. We had 107 total felony arrests for the first quarter of 2023. That's up from 97 in the first quarter of 2022. Violent felony arrests went down in 2023, but drug felonies did increase in 2023 in that first quarter. And again, misdemeanor arrests stayed fairly consistent. Other than that, unless there are any questions, I do have 4 resolutions.
Anybody have anything, attorney? Go right ahead into your resolutions.
Okay, JP4 is seeking authorization to fill 2 assistant district attorney vacancies.
Move it.
Have a motion?
I'll second it.
Have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP5.
JP5 is seeking authorization for the execution of an agreement for Axon, which are our body worn cameras for storage. We are getting we need a significant increase in storage to maintain those body cameras. We're required to keep them for a long time, at least 20 years on felonies. So we need to up that storage. This is actually budgeted for in the 2024 budget, and it'll be covered fully by our discovery grant.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
I have a question for myself. When you say you need more storage, I'm assuming that's like cloud or?
Correct.
Like that. Okay.
Yes, we actually have 2 separate systems. So we have the Axon system, which is just for body camera footage, that we're going to store body cameras in that system. So that's what that storage is for. And then we have our case management system. And we found out by putting body cameras in our case management system that increases that price of that storage significantly. So we're looking to split it up a little bit. So it's to save costs.
Thank you. Anybody?
What does the case management integration mean?
So it's our prosecutor's case management system where we keep all of our case files, because we're fully electronic now.
Yeah.
So we keep everything, all the paperwork from every arrest in that case management system.
And this will be now part of those particular cases, or?
So it's a separate storage system, but it's for the Axon system for the body cameras, because those take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Any other questions for JP5? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP6.
JP6 is seeking authorization to pay overtime to support staff with our office to work on the Dreams project. That will be the scanning of the files that we need that are part of that Dreams project.
Move it. Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I got a phone call right before the meeting from County Clerk Sudweiler, who asked or pointed out, I guess, that the maximum amount she had in the capital H was $80,000.
I was gonna ask the question, there's the dollar amount that you're eligible to use to pay isn't part of this.
It was
resolution.
removed when it was revised. I don't know who took that part out of it. It was in the initial version of it. So it was $90,000, but we can get it done with $80,000. So we'll do that with the agreement with the clerk's office.
So, okay, that was my only, I mean, I know you were initially looking at a flat stipend, now have exempted these individuals and now you'll track their overtime. But the only thing that I was curious about is the original resolution said you're gonna transfer money in this amount to pay for this, but that's the part that probably needs to be amended and put back in the dollar amount that can be.
So it's difficult, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
It's difficult to estimate if you're doing overtime because I don't know how much.
No, but up to amount. If she can transfer you $80,000, you can pay up to that amount.
Right.
But
it's just hard to estimate doing it overtime.
Okay, looking at the resolutions here with the legal staff, there is no dollar amount specified in the resolution. Do we want to put that?
You would amend it.
I make an amendment to include up to 80,000 or?
It will be 80,000, yeah. I'll have to figure that out. I'll just talk to my staff and it's tough, but it's approximately $80,000.
So I'll move.
Hang on.
I mean, you're gonna obviously now track the overtime, sign for the time that they work between 35 and 40 and after 40, and then track the amount of spending and not spend more than the Dreams allocation.
Sure, the problem is, I mean, so it takes 2 to 4 hours to do a box. So we have 800 boxes. So what happens if the $80,000 is gone and we still have boxes left? Do we come back to the ledge at that point?
I guess, well, how else would you pay for it?
Right.
Right, you'd almost have, I mean.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you would do.
Yeah, so that's fine if we want to do the $80,000 and then if I have to come back, I'll come back.
You may have to use money to transfer into a salary line so that you have the money to actually pay these expenses. But yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah, you just come back if it's over, just like
Okay.
any other.
Well, I guess now that brings up a question for me, and maybe this legal folks over here can answer it. We have a specific line in the budget?
No, I'm just saying if
Or
she's
is this
gonna, if she's gonna pay these particular individuals overtime, I don't know if she has an overtime line. She doesn't for these people because they've never been eligible for overtime. So at some point, there should be a transfer of Dreams money into her budget so she can cover these expenses and be able to track her spending. Because the original resolution, you did transfer money into your budget from the Dreams project.
Yes, we were looking for that 80,000.
But this resolution doesn't have any of that language in here at all. And that was the point I think Chris was making as well.
Yeah.
Right, it's tied to the capital H for the Dreams project, and then capital H only has just that one bucket of money. I mean, you could always amend the capital H, which then you still have to come up with a source to fund it, but without jumping through that, and now you've got an MOU that's gonna be silent on that aspect if you don't amend the resolution.
Right.
No, yeah.
Right, and that was your intent, to move money from the Dreams project into your budget so you could do it instead of sending it out. And
Yes, that's what we had
Right.
talked about. And it was, I don't know why it was taken out of the original draft. I'm sure there was a reason for it.
The capital H has 80,000 right now. That's what you're saying.
That's
Designated.
Available to be allocated for this.
Correct.
So then we need to amend the resolution to say up to $80,000 from capital H.
Second. Right,
Thank you.
and that'll be incorporated into the MOU.
Did you get that down?
Yeah, I hope somebody did, cause I got lost. So I got a motion by Chris.
Motion by Andy, second by me,
Okay. I got a
to
motion and
up
a
to
second.
$80,000.
On the capital H, bro.
From the cap, or to the cap.
From.
From.
Capital H to Brittany.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Can I ask what that, somebody's transferring money from the capital H? Is that,
I thought that's where it's coming from.
it will, that's where the payment will be, but this is just for authorizing
Yes.
an MOU.
I said authorizing to come from the capital H.
Right, a maximum of 80,000.
Yeah.
But you're not transferring anything.
I think Lynn wants to say something. Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, I think we're looking at this, it's not gonna be a transfer from the capital H. It's almost like the DA's department would be a vendor that we would pay out of the capital H, just like you would pay the other vendor to scan it. So we're not doing any transfer out of the capital H. It's just what we're paying.
I said it's going to come from the capital H.
I'm with you, Andy.
And that's why an MOU is gonna be in place. A memorandum of understanding between the DA and just like they were a vendor doing business in shredding.
Right.
Okay.
You got this?
Okay, so no, I don't. So I got a motion and a second to amend JP 6 to not spend over 80,000.
Amended
Second.
resolution.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Or opposed? Anybody opposed? None carried. I'm confused.
In the first place.
Good. We got through that one. JP 7.
JP 7 is authorization to fill a law associate position.
Need a motion?
Move it.
I'll second it.
I'm a killjoy. I just have another question. The filling of the law associate is probably an unbudgeted position, but you're going to, you have 3 ADA vacancies,
So
right?
2 ADA vacancies, and this law clerk position would only come into a place if we're gonna hire a law associate who would eventually move to fill one of those ADA.
One of the
positions.
2, not,
Correct.
okay, see, I thought one went to DSS.
No.
Oh, one of staff, no, maybe it wasn't. that you-
No, it was her staff.
Yes, okay.
One of
So
your ADAs.
You have two vacancies, ADA vacancies. You're going to fill one of them with this associate, and when they're eligible to be an ADA, you'll
They'll
move them in and take the, gotcha.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it won't be an extra position. It's just to
Yeah,
give
okay,
some flexibility.
all right, thanks.
Any other discussion on JP7? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anybody else have anything else for the district?
That's a line now.
Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda, emergency services. Riley.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the fact that I wasn't able to get a report completed last week, which is why I left it as a lay down while we were all in an executive session. If there aren't any questions on my report, I have no resolutions tonight, and I just speak for a brief moment on the ambulance status. I sent a very lengthy email yesterday evening with a gross number of statistics and other information that were requested. I encourage everybody as current, returning, or future legislators to please evaluate that information and to reach out to me regarding your schedule to set up a time to try and explain that further and some of the solutions that were put in front of you. 45 days ago, we had 5 solutions. That has very quickly narrowed to about 3 apparent ones. And where that goes, we have about 45 days to try and do something. So I encourage everybody to please reach out to me. I'd love to explain all of those further in detail, but I won't bog down with a full presentation this evening.
So first, I'd like to have a full presentation.
Randy,
When you, the information you sent out had all 5 on there, and you just said 3 of them are more viable. Which 3 do you think are the more viable?
AMR will not stay. That is no longer an option.
Oh, okay, because there was one in there about
Subsidizing.
The second option that really is not viable at this time is setting up a countywide ambulance, both due to cost and limited time to try and do so. We can't buy rigs, hire providers,
right,
order stretchers, et cetera.
I would
So you have 3 true apparent ones. One solution is to contract with another existing agency through establishing a municipal certificate of need. And really the only player at the table that would be capable of absorbing that territory would be Auburn City Ambulance. And how we would move forward with that, how we would negotiate a contract with that would have to be discussed. Regardless of whether or not that CON goes to explicitly Auburn City Ambulance, I still believe that the second option, which in my eyes is the most viable solution, is still establishing a municipal certificate of need for the county. The process is much quicker for a municipality than it is through a normal process. At which point we could then contract and subsidize the independent agencies that continue to service this county to continue providing service despite the massive cost overruns in operational and personnel costs compared to the return rates at Medicare and Medicaid that we're seeing. The third option that I don't believe is sustainable, but again, it's the most cost effective for this body, is do nothing and let it completely fall back onto mutual aid. At which point we're talking about a 2,400 call balance. Now seeing the last 3 years worth of call volume for AMR, we're not seeing 3,000 true calls. You're seeing a differential of about 29% are sign-offs or cancels, as opposed to 3,000 transports. You're seeing an average of 3.5 to 4.5 transports a day. But again, a large number of those will be dumped onto volunteer fire department based ambulances that do not have staff sitting at the station waiting to take these. And if you're telling a department that their call volume might go from 150 calls to north of 300, just based on geography, it will break the camel's back for a lot of these small agencies.
Can you go over number 2 again, please, for me, so while I read this out?
Sure. So number 2 was an option, and I produced 2 separate calculators, and I can break this down further with anybody. But the idea was, look at it like a snowplow contract. it's a fee for service. So some of these agencies bill, some of them do not. And the ones that currently do not, if you look at the Medicaid calculator that was used, even if they did bill, it's not going to pay for personnel. It is not going to pay enough for an EMT to sit even 12 hours a day at some of these agencies. It's not there at the current rates that are out there. So providing a subsidy as a fee for service, meaning they've actually run a call or they've been canceled for something, would then give them the chance to support operational costs. I don't care if it's to buy a stretcher, to go towards a new rig, or if it's to pay for additional personnel, which many of these agencies that already have employees in place could then do. And when you look at the overall cost of what a 24-hour in-service unit would be at averages, you're able to support all or close to all of that to keep maybe 4 ALS rigs in service full-time 24/7 to replace the 1.5 that we're then losing at a significantly lower cost than to just contract with AMR outright based on their other contracts scattered throughout the state. So that's really where that's coming from. Coming from personal experience, I was chair of a highway emergency services area in Alaska where we supported fire, first response, and ambulances for responses in an area that otherwise the taxpayers could not have done so. It was predominantly a cargo and tourism corridor. And this was used as a bolstering to prevent those independent departments from having to go paid or combination at a greater cost later on. And that's really where this idea was generated from, but tuned specifically to transporting ambulances as opposed to an entire emergency services response.
Mark?
Thank you,
Chairman.
Riley, I know you've met with the chiefs and the presidents. What's their thought on this?
The thought is this will be a hit. Mutual aid will cover in the immediate. It will cover as it has before. Everybody is committed to working together and serving the public. That's what this comes down to. But ultimately, if we don't have some mechanism in place to support these ambulances, I do believe that you will see some of them continue to fail and some of them continue to aim towards closure. We have lost 3 ambulances in this county in the last 5 years. And I do believe that if you don't start bolstering, whether they use it for stipends for their volunteers or whether they use it towards personnel in those combination agencies, I think you will see more of them head towards closure or some very limited time. At which point the impact will fall not only on the local fire departments providing first response EMS, but it'll fall on the patients when they're waiting on rigs or waiting for more appropriate care. The local ambulances are all willing to step up to do what they can, but it comes down to manpower and man hours, and it comes down to making sure they aren't taking on more territory outside of what they already have with absolutely no financial incentive other than a 40% average return rate on billings.
I want to thank you for sending that email out. It was very, very informative.
Yep, it was good. It was good. I have this. I was just wanted to hear.
I have the full breakdown in print as well, if anybody would like.
Tim, did you have another question?
Thanks, Dave. Thanks. So this, I just got a question on this stipend or this.
Sure.
You're talking about. So that's gonna be, how is that, is that just gonna be for the Auburn juggernaut and the donut around it, or?
It would be for all 14 agencies that continue to service the county, including the 3 out-of-county agencies.
So these are private agencies or?
There's a combination. There's
I'm
volunteer.
just wondering how Fairhaven would get affected by it. because-
Fairhaven would see support, and this goes for the existing call volume, because I really don't want to get into the demographics of, are they a county resident, are they a city resident? If one of us pulled out of this.
I'm talking about just the Fairhaven ambulance service.
For Fairhaven, if you went specifically on a call-by-call basis at the rates that I plugged in, you'd see a benefit of about $185,000 a year, which equates to staffing just shy of a 24-hour or just shy of a 12-hour ALS rig staying in service. They could cover additional 12 to 12 or 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Ambulance calls at the paramedic rate, or it could turn around and become maybe a BLS unit that stays in service besides.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to know if that was gonna extend out.
Everybody, I want to
Okay.
see Southern Cayuga all the way to Fairhaven be supported.
Because we're struggling up there and it comes out of the taxpayer dollars. The taxpayers of the village of Fairhaven make up the difference if the ambulance service loses money. It's the only way we're keeping it open. And we're having trouble with that.
Additional.
The other impact that you're gonna see is if people are waiting, put yourself in that situation, if you're waiting and waiting and waiting, you're not getting anything, what are you gonna do? You're gonna call 911 again. So it's gonna impact us because if we don't have someone to send and that person's waiting, they're just inevitably they're gonna call back. So it's gonna tax my staff as well.
This is maybe simplifying it too much, but if an ambulance goes out and it's like a fee for service, they do a service, they get their billing, and then the balance of what's not covered in terms of their operating costs are gonna be subsidized by the county?
Correct.
Is that basically how it's gonna work?
That's
If
the-
Medicaid pays this much money, but it costs them this much money to do it,
This would balance out because Medicaid and Medicare currently do not pay for cancels or refusals, which are about 29% of the calls that exist.
but currently, the county is not subsidizing any of this.
No.
To Fairhaven or anyone that has, and the county would, they're certainly, Auburn went out and did outside of their jurisdiction, they would get the subsidy because they're in territory that they're not.
I proposed a cap. You
Oh.
cap it regardless. So number of patients, you cap it at, and that can be negotiated, right? Perhaps $300,000, perhaps less, perhaps more. It's up to this body to decide, but
Each service in the county is going to be potentially made whole so that they can continue
this
to
would make
operate.
up some of the shortfall. It wouldn't do all of it,
Mhm.
because if you look at the rates for salaries alone,
Yep.
not including hard line items, you're still operating at a deficit unless you already have municipal support from a township.
But this subsidy would have to be calculated into a dollar amount and budgeted for. That, I mean, you're talking,
1.934 million of my offerings, but again, that can be negotiated. I took explicitly Medicare, Medicaid rates for emergency calls, and this would be almost a dollar for dollar match with the addition of those cancels and refusals.
in the lower volume of calls, the less subsidy that would be
Would
required.
be paid out,
And that's where this nurse line probably makes some sense.
yes. And this would also offset the balance of Haven or Lake Jordan that would be responding into Senate, or Saves responding into Senate, or Owasco, or Auburn City going to Aurelius, whatever the case might be. This would offset what they're losing by already having a municipal contract in place other places.
But if they're already doing business and they serve their own catchment area, they don't get the subsidy, or they get the subsidy?
I would say it goes, you're still paying for an ambulance to service taxpayers, whether it's in their service area or outside of it.
But we're not subsidizing now.
No.
Right. This would be new.
No, the county is not subsidizing any ambulance service currently, and there are at least 4 townships that aren't subsidizing an ambulance at all.
Which seems kind of crazy.
It's not considered an essential service in the state of New York.
So
When you need one, I guess. Yeah.
for a quick example, you go north of the thruway. In 21, when my father, before he passed away and had all of his issues, we'd either get Jordan, Simbeck, or Fairhaven, because it depended on if one was, Simbeck's literally 2 miles away, but if they were out, we might get Fairhaven. So if they were out, we might get Jordan. So you can't really nail it down to say that's your specific area, because they're all, like the day we put him, called an ambulance that he went to the hospital a couple weeks before he passed away was the 4th of July. So, and we waited a good half an hour before we got one of the 3, because there was other ambulances out on, as a few of the firemen said, stupid calls, because it was the 4th of July. So
Certificates of need and assigning a dedicated area are a very antiquated process that the state of New York still recognizes. Ultimately, you need to get the closest ambulance there to service that patient at the appropriate level of care. And if we establish one for the county, then we would have the ability to use this like a snow contract, where there would be minimum response and provider expectations to ensure that people are getting out the door appropriately and there's somebody in there.
And I wouldn't be surprised too that, especially in the last, 2, 3, 4 years, that people don't give as much to their local, when it comes in the mail, they throw it away.
Plenty to think about.
Yeah, so to that point too, and I can only relate my experience to managing, and I don't really manage it. We have a very good person, Mr. Stan Krausik, that takes care of our ambulance service. That service, whether it leaves the barn or not, it runs us about $3,000 a day, so you can do the math. And that's to have 2 providers there, and sometimes, and I have to put a shout out to our volunteer fire department, who sometimes has to come and help with some of those situations, or they send a driver, a volunteer driver, and it allows us to send the fly car out when maybe the ambulance doesn't need to go, but then the ambulance is still ready in case there's a second call. So it's not it's not an inexpensive thing to provide that service where you don't know if you're gonna get, I hate to say it this way, you don't know if you're gonna get business or not, but you're still spending that money every day to have that equipment there, insured, fuel, manned, the passes that go along with that. And we've done everything we could to assist them. You would be familiar with the Lucas. For a long time, we only had one driver.
Those things.
So we purchased these things called the Lucas, which allowed them to allow the medic to put this on and do the compressions and everything, so they could attend to doing other stuff. And we bought a second one. It works so well, even though we have a manned ambulance. So I think it's important to know that this is a huge deal. And in the city, you guys are lucky to have a city paid ambulance service close by for the surrounding town, should they have to get out there.
And literally the stupidest things can happen. The ambulance showed up, got a flat tire. They had to park it across the road out of the way and wait for another ambulance to come to take my father.
And if the things break.
And this turned into a presentation, by the way.
This was a question and answer session, not a presentation.
Anybody else have anything for Riley?
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you for the email too, very helpful.
Next up is probation, Mr. J.D. Westfalair. Jay?
Good evening, everyone. Pretty short report this time around. I do have one resolution which was submitted on short notice. Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it. And that's to authorize filling a probation officer position for, leave it as a disciplinary matter so that we don't trip over into personnel issues that can't be discussed publicly.
I'll move second.
I have a motion and a second for JP 8. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Sheriff.
Good evening, everybody. I'll make it short. First, I'd like to congratulate Jay on his pending retirement. I think this is your last meeting, right? JPS?
Yep.
Congratulations. He's been a great public safety partner, so. I did submit my report. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. And if not, I believe I have 5 resolutions.
Nobody has anything for the sheriff? Let's move right on into resolution. JP9, sir.
JP9 is authorizing us to accept funding from the Cayuga Community Health Network Sober Truth on Preventing Underage Drinking Act program. It's basically grant funding of $2,500 to utilize towards proactive DWI enforcement.
Move it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. JP10.
JP10 is a resolution authorizing us just to change titles within the Sheriff's Custody Division, essentially changing the titles from Sheriff Custody Officer to Deputy Sheriff. And my intent with that is to make everybody under our umbrella that are either police or peace officers, deputy sheriffs, so we're all one team.
Move it. Have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Does
ahead.
this affect salaries or anything like this because we're changing names?
Does not.
Hey, I like this.
Any other questions for JP ten? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP eleven, sir.
JP eleven is authorizing us to contract with Westwood Pharmacy for our pharmaceutical needs in the jail. We're currently with them. I want to continue working with them, and we're basically piggybacking off an RFP that Erie County had put out for the same services.
Move it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP twelve.
JP 12 is authorizing accepting funding from the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for proactive vehicle and traffic enforcement. This is a grant that we accept each year.
Move it.
Have a motion, need a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion on JP twelve?
Just a quick question. Does it ever go up or is it?
It does fluctuate, but I can't tell you, I can't do it right now if it's more or less than last year, but it's not, it doesn't change much.
It's not a huge, like they don't take away 50% of.
It's only 8,000 something, right? Is that,
It's not a significant amount
it's a small.
each year.
Any other questions on JP twelve? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 13.
And JP 13 is authorizing a transfer from the general fund to our medical care line for the incarcerated individuals. We're over our medical budget for the year for the same reasons. We had to up our meal and prescription costs here, I believe, last month.
Move it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Andy, go ahead.
This is probably gonna be a continuing trend.
We're looking to budget some additional funds to cover that next year, which I
mean,
be getting into, but yeah.
It's not the tater tots.
What is this used for, Brian? Just met doctor appointment or?
This is, so doctor's appointments, yes, when we take somebody out of the facility, they're treated at a hospital, doctor's office.
Okay,
That care is provided. We're required to pay for that
Yep.
because they're not eligible for Medicaid
Yep.
while they're in the facility.
okay.
County has to pay for that.
Have to pay for all drugs and everything else too, right?
Prescriptions, yes.
Any other questions about JP 13? Hearing none?
Said crime doesn't pay.
Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Any other discussion or questions? for Sheriff?
Sure. Isn't that thing this Thursday?
Diagnosed with cancer, go commit a crime.
Thursday, we do have a community meeting. We're hosting with our community collaborative committee. Talk about substance abuse in our community. It's at the Cayuga Community College, Thursday night at 6 p.m. It's open to the public. We're encouraging the public to come to talk with us about that. Just, what we're seeing in our community, what we can do about it, and just hopefully get some feedback so we can address some of these issues with some public input.
Time on that again, Sheriff.
6 p.m. Cayuga Community College, Thursday night.
At that room.
The room, as you go into the main entrance, it's right to the left,
Yep.
that larger room, I believe across from the auditorium. We'd welcome everybody to come if anybody's available and wants to come.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn. Oh, sir, go ahead.
Don't forget, our Public Works and JPS is Tuesday, December 5th. So make sure you put it on your calendar because it's very early next month.
Do adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Aye.
Carried.
Apparently, we have a special Ways and Means coming up.
Yep.
So, give you about a minute.
Right on, good.
That's back where planning is. So it's kind of covering the Planning and Economic Development Committee first, the planning department and employment training. So just like Steve kind of said, he did actually reduce one part-time staff that we had in the budget before. It's no longer in the budget. The only other change over the slight increase in the planning board contract, but that was something that had been planned out. I think it was like phased in several years.
I don't see anything on the back page.
Not that one, Andy. Go to the.
Thick one is.
This one?
This one, yeah. In order to go to last page. This is split by committee, so we're just for the last committee first.
So I don't really have any major changes. As Lynn said, we reduced one half-time administrative assistant position in my office. And just to let you know, I might be coming back to actually reduce. You had authorized a couple of months ago a senior planner / GIS analyst in our department. And we're not really getting a lot of hits on that. I might reduce that to a planner level, actually save a little bit of money and sort of, look at what the, maybe not tagging that position to the highest technical duties that does, and really make it more about the day-to-day operations that we do. So, a lot of changes.
How would you get the GIS work done?
I think we originally made it that senior level because of a lot of the SWOT analysis for the 9-element plan. And it's looking as if the DEC is not really that interested in taking it beyond the level that it was when the SWOT analysis was finished. And if that we have to do periodic analysis with the SWOT model, that we might be able to farm that out to an individual or do it that way and not peg the whole full-time job to that level of experience.
Question, Steve.
Steve,
Thank you. To alleviate the problems we went through last year with the funding for the buoy, has that been put into your budget, or are we gonna bid that out again? How's that gonna work?
the amount of money has been put into the budget, how it gets done and whether or not we go out to RFP or whatever, as we did this year, that's a separate issue. We just earmarked pretty much the same amount of money to have a booth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, anybody? None, I guess.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Petcher.
Next up is Health and Human Services.
Well, employment and training is actually on this committee too. So wanted to point out there was no significant changes in their budget either. And the other thing that we usually review is the funding for Soil and Water Conservation District, which is also under that committee. And it just noted on here that there's an increase in their budget. We budgeted their request, $800,000.
Any questions? Elaine or anybody?
Yep, Kelly.
777 was last year's.
Yeah.
Mark.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. If there are no questions, we'll go on. Judicial and Public Safety.
That starts on the third page in this handout. The other thing I just want to point out to you, this other document I gave you, I'm not going to go over this, but this is kind of more like a reference guide that what I put on here, this includes the personnel requests. There's a column that shows whether it was included in the budget or not. I also then get into some of the larger requests, which are mostly buildings requests, equipment requests. I have them by department and the same type of thing. There's a comment whether it was included or not. So when we get down to like parks and buildings, I haven't specifically said at different points what we did budget. I may have mentioned what we didn't, but this would include, we can either talk about it or it's just here for you to have a reference to see, you know, look at the department, you can look at it to see what we did include. And then I just have some other large changes, I call them, and that's, you know, sales tax, other big DSS accounts, overall, health benefits, retirement contributions. They cause large impacts and swings on the budget overall. So it just gives some much more detailed information that's kind of hard to pull out of the budget book, and because there's not, the detail isn't there when you look in our budget book, equipment, but you can't see what are the equipment requests, or maintenance, what are the maintenance requests. So here it has a little bit more detail for you to look at. Okay.
Are there any questions? Everybody's so happy.
I got
There you
one.
go.
Is there anything, because I won't be here tomorrow night, I'm assuming we're doing highway and other things, public works stuff tomorrow night. I mean, we've taken $200,000 out of our paving for next year. Is there anything in any of our budget, any department, that if there's ARPA money left over can be used for? Because, and I'm not telling you, Dave, whoever, I mean, you know, we're telling the general public, look, we're giving you a responsible budget, but we're gonna pave less of your roads. And I'm just using that as an example. I mean, a lot of our roads suck in New York State. Some of them do here too. I mean, so is there anything in here that can be, ARPA money can be used for, if there is ARPA money? I mean, obviously, we need to discuss our second source of water. Take down the road for, you know, 30 years and other things. Or is all of this non-ARPA that is in this year's budget, I guess?
And we did not budget any ARPA revenue in this budget. There are ARPA funds remaining that could be in anybody's budget.
What exactly do we have remaining? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, several million. We also have the Highway Reserve Fund that has $3.5 million in it. We did increase the contribution to the highway fund by $300,000 with cutting $200,000 out of their paving. And, you know, I kind of talked to Brian Soper about this, and it's really kind of, when the funds are in his highway budget, he could move them around. He could buy less of the piece of equipment and put it in the paving. You know, he could, I mean, so there's certainly, you know, options of what it can be spent on, even when it's in there. He also said, you know, there could be a chance that maybe the plowing contract could come in lower, depending, because we do it more on time and materials. Now, it's not just the set contract amount, and that actually helped his budget in 2023 because it was a lighter winter. We're coming in under budget on that. So, you know, we kind of talked about that there's certain flexibility within his budget for him to ask to move the money around. It wouldn't just have to be that line. It was almost easier to kind of just take it out of the piece of equipment that he would know best about, what maybe he could pass on for a piece of equipment for a year or something if he wanted to pave.
So that's another thing too, though, is I know others have harped on this too. I agree with you. If it's in their budget, they should be able to move it. They shouldn't have to come with a resolution. They need to move 200,000 from here to here because we're gonna pave more roads or whatever. It's in, and I'm not talking just highway, it's in your budget. If your budget gets passed, why do we always have to come here for resolutions for somebody to spend money in a budget that we passed? I don't get it. I mean, if it's in your budget, who cares what line I mean, I get it if it's in one of those reserve funds.
Well, I think though that we're held by our auditors that we can't transfer money without approval by the legislature. That's some of the controls that are in place over government spending. We're not allowed to spend over the budget. We're not allowed to move money except these small amounts. So we have a policy below $15,000, then we can. But it's a way for there to be control at your level.
But we wouldn't be spending over budget if we get, and I'm just throwing.
No, I don't disagree
Yeah.
with you. I'm just saying, I think it's a control that we can't waive.
We give
I
you a
don't think
$5
we
million budget. We gave you a $5 million budget. You shouldn't have to come back and say, well, I need to transfer 100, sheriff, I need to transfer 100,000 to out of this because we're not gonna probably use it for medical expenses because, we got extra medical expenses in the jail. Why do we have to come here? I mean, I don't care in 45 days. I'm just saying, this is how stupid government is run at all levels. We pass a budget. We tell you, you have X amount of dollars in your budget.
I guess to that point, I would assume that if the sheriff could have made those lines whole within his own budget without strapping him, he would have considered that.
He would have, but he also can't transfer above $15,000.
Without a resolution though.
Right,
But
some of it,
the ask was from the fund balance, because my assumption is he doesn't have the money.
No, I get that. I'm not, I was just using that as an example. If he had the money in his budget.
I see what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
the point is, you give somebody whatever, $5 million budget. Here's your budget. Why are we saying, oh, you want to transfer that 15,000 is insane? Oh, you want to transfer 25,000 from here to there within your $5 million budget we already okayed? Come and see us and we'll vote on it. What if it gets voted no for some stupid reason? I mean, it's just, it's chaotic.
government.
Yeah. I would just say.
Anybody else?
Are we still talking about JPS's budget, I'm assuming?
Just to respond to, Andy, I would say simply, it's important to have transparency for the taxpayers. Part of that is transparency.
Transparency is, here's the budget we passed.
But if it's not discussed on floors, there's no discussion, therefore the public doesn't have transparency.
Is this open for the public to look at when it's passed?
But you're saying about modifying it afterwards. And so like, say someone wanted to remodel their office, and you did not include that in the budget. You're saying, well, just let them do whatever they want. And I think that's the control at the government level, that they want to have your authorization to say, otherwise people could do that.
We didn't.
Well, you are in saying that if I give you $5 million, do whatever you want with it.
I'm not saying do
people-
whatever you want with it. They're coming to us and showing us what they want to do with it.
But they could change their mind in 4 months, and if they don't have to come back with that resolution, you can't say no, because what if it is someone who's gonna misappropriate it and redo their office and they shouldn't be?
I guess they get
That's
fired
fine.
right after they do it.
Well, can't fire some people, so.
Jenny, I understand your point. I just think that Lynn,
Yeah,
we
Brian.
get audited.
Why am I the example?
Check that.
Well, this is the guy that
I haven't even heard it, but we get audited.
No different than when we pass a resolution. Somebody, if they don't do it within a certain amount of months, because find somebody, they gotta come back to get the same resolution passed again. We already gave them permission to do. It's just.
But that is something totally different than the state.
Oh, I know.
and auditing us. And I agree with you, but this is a state law, and even though there's a lot of stupid state laws, we have to follow. But I agree with, it's too bad we have to do that, but we do.
And I have a couple of things. Just looking at the sheriff department's, highlight and their budget here. As I know, the sheriff came to us back, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, about a new boat. He said, the boats are, they're getting up there in age. We're spending a little bit more money every year to, maintain them up to a certain standard. And I see the boat was not included in the budget. Sheriff, am I stealing any of your thunder or anything like that about the boat? Yeah.
So yeah, I did put in my initial proposal that I wanted to replace one of our 4 boats. We've got 3 2007 Key West boats and 1 2012 Boston Whaler. They are getting a little bit tired, but I think if we don't replace that this year, we're gonna have to seriously think about that in the coming years. I did put that in there this year. State Parks is offering a match up to $100,000 to assist with the purchase of a boat. So we would have that if we did purchase one, but you know, I do understand the strain on the budget, but we will have to think about that in the coming years, starting to rotate some of these boats out if we're going to be serious about providing those services on our waterways and lakes.
Any further comments, anybody, questions?
One of the things I have to point out to you, on the 911 section here, I do need to have a budget adjustment made. It excluded a part-time salary for a position that had recently been filled. I didn't realize it had been filled, so I'm gonna ask, maybe if they would make a motion to add that back into the part-time salary, $16,490.
Are we doing those or are we gonna wait till the end and then?
I mean, I think you should make motions as we're doing them, and I'm gonna put a sheet together. If it's like a no-brainer, if it's something that's controversial, then no, then we can separate it. But to me, this is one of my housekeeping things. It was an error. It was.
One more time?
What?
Can you just explain one more time?
16,000 what?
$493.
It's on the third page.
I did not realize it was filled, so it was cut out, was vacant. It's been filled, and we were approved to fill this job already in 2023.
I'll make that motion now.
That goes back in the budget.
To move it back into the budget. So I'll make that motion now to move 16,000. And you know where you're moving it from.
Well, we can make a motion to increase the sales tax if you want. That's fine.
It's gotta come from somewhere, right?
Right, so you gotta increase the
Sales tax
revenue.
revenue, not the tax base. You know what?
Right,
what you-
increase sales tax.
There are other options.
I don't have an option of something to cut, so, I mean,
What are you talking about, fund balance?
Yeah.
well, the sales tax is just an estimate of what the sales tax is gonna be.
Oh, okay, I got you. All right.
Not the tax.
Estimated, okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
I'll make the motion from the projected sales tax.
To increase it by 16,000, right?
60,005. What's it?
$93.
All right, great.
Motion, there was a second. Thanks.
I seconded it.
Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion is
Opposed.
carried.
I hate the sales tax thing.
So I guess I want to just get back to the boat thing, and I'm being, I guess, dumb here. There is a grant, $100,000 grant, and I hate to, Sheriff, I gotta ask a question, is that $100,000 grant gonna be available in the coming years, or is this just like a one-time off?
I don't know the answer to that. It's available now, but maybe, but I
And
can
the
answer
cost
that.
of a boat we talked about was like 200,000?
We can buy certainly one that's will work well for what we need it to for under 200,000, and it would be a 50-50 match.
Yeah, I hate to give, I hate to give away money, $100,000 that's out there available. I mean, granted, it's $100,000 that we have to come up with to match the grant, but
Where do you want to take it from? Not to sell.
I'm not the expert on that. I would have to actually sit down and have that discussion with Lynn. But I just.
Oh, you go from the fund balance, right? If you're not doing the sales tax and we're not cutting.
You can definitely increase sales tax some. I mean, we haven't talked about a lot of these numbers, but I had a conservative increase in the growth of about 3.5% over what I think we're gonna collect this year. It's totally an estimate. I have no idea what sales tax is gonna be next year.
I wouldn't do that at this point.
Neither would I. I mean, because.
But I mean, using the fund balance, we're already using
9 million.
$9 million of the fund balance. I wouldn't necessarily increase that either. So, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to increase the sales tax. It's $30 million, $30.6 million. Either way, when your sales tax comes in better, you're gonna use less of the fund balance. Or you can increase the fund balance and then it doesn't happen. I mean, those are your options, but there's nothing else to you don't have to make a motion tonight, Millie said, we're gonna have a resolution tomorrow night. And these will all be listed in it,
I mean,
anything that you do.
I don't, I'm trying to spend money wisely here. I don't want to spend it foolishly. And as I say, I mean, if there's $100,000 grant out there, and that's nothing to sneeze at. And if we can get a piece of equipment that, you know, we're talking about public safety here. And if we can get a $200,000 piece of equipment for our own personal county investment of $100,000, I think it's a wise thing to do. Now, again, I'm not the expert when it comes to where all this money comes from out of the budget. Obviously, it's got to come from somewhere. I'm gonna ask, you know, the experts to guide us wisely in trying to make this happen.
Let me ask a question. Brian, let me ask you a question first. This is available every year. It was available when I was out there, so I imagine it would continue. I'm talking about matching grant. Can you get through one more year with these boats?
We could certainly get through another year. I mean, we're gonna have to put some money into them to maintain them. But it is something we're definitely going to have to address in the years to come. But I think, you know, I think I may have mentioned this last year during last year's budget meeting. We kicked the can down the road. And I think at some point we've got to make the decision. Do we want to be serious about providing public safety services on the water or not?
What about the motor? Is that outdated too, or is that?
We've replaced motors on a couple of boats already, but the boats themselves are just getting tired. I mean, they're getting old.
Mr. Chair, I just had a caveat or a concern of mine that when I was first elected to this body, we ended up in an issue with the road patrol vehicles. And I think it's important to maintain a schedule and turnover. So I'd rather anticipate rather than react. So I'm inclined to agree with Mark in that we should sort of, if possible, work on, it sounds like we're getting there, and rather than end up in a situation where all boats are required, you know, we have to replace them all. Let's get on a schedule, if possible, to replace the boat like in a timely fashion. We're not caught with our pants down, so to speak.
It's gonna come to a point here soon where we're gonna, you know, be down, whether it's a boat or two, and not putting it on a particular lake. I mean, you're gonna have to tell your constituents that we're not providing that service because we don't have the boat. So you have to decide whether you want to do that or not.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Lynn a question? If we vote for this and amend this and vote for this, the budget has got to go up by 200,000, because by the time we get reimbursed this 100,000 grant, it's certainly going to be after this budget.
No, it'll be 100,000. We'll budget the revenue too.
And then just waiting for that other 100,000.
Yeah, we record an accounts receivable when they put the claim in.
Okay.
They spend the money, we record the revenue too.
Okay.
Another question, if I may. And you could potentially get a boat for 150,000, right? And then it'd be a 75. So we'll allocate 100, right? And then what's
It's a
match?
50-50 match. I think we're gonna be closer to 200 to get what we need, but
all right.
That certainly could be an option if we could purchase one for that. It would be 50-50.
Big canoe.
Further comment?
One of those bike ones.
Do we have to vote on that?
Then if we do this, how much will it change the budget percentage wise?
No one has said what they want to offset. I mean, if you offset
For
the
the
sales tax.
I'll make the motion to move 100,000, to allocate 100,000 from fund balance.
I'll second it.
From the fund
The
balance?
fund balance is.
Motion on the floor.
You're making the
Open for
fund balance?
discussion.
Wait a minute, could you, everybody listen to what Lynn's saying, please?
He made a motion to take
You're
the money
making
to
the fund
increase the fund
balance
balance.
increase from 6.9 to 6.91. So we're using more of our fund balance than we currently have, $6,900,000 we're using to budget for this operating budget. You want to use more fund balance?
I wanted to take 100,000 from fund balance.
But you're not, we're doing a budget, so it's like the use of the fund balance right now is $6,992,000. You'll increase that to 7 million.
Right.
You can't take it from the fund balance. You're gonna use the fund balance. We're doing a budget.
Right, so,
He's thinking about taking from the A fund that's currently sitting out there, but
Right.
that's not what we're trying to do here, right?
well, that's what I'm trying to do.
You're trying to not increase the fund balance for 2024. You're trying to take whatever we have in our fund balance now and
Like, you're looking at me like, I got six hats. Is there something that I don't, is there a reason why we can't do that?
Because we're not buying it right now. We're doing the budget for 2024.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is that, so we can't use,
You're just wording it differently. You're gonna increase the usage of the fund balance in this budget. Is what you're saying, and change it from 6.9 million to 7,092,092. The motion you're putting on the floor.
yeah.
At the end, it uses the fund balance, but that's not the motion you're making. Which is fine. I mean, you have to affect something. That's the motion.
In other words, Chris, to get to the 2% property tax increase for 2024, we're taking $7 million out of our fund balance. To do what you want to do, we will be taking $7.1 million.
Right.
Out of our fund balance.
Yeah.
yeah. That's his fault.
Further comments, Jim?
Is there any chance we can, between now and tomorrow, get a detailed breakdown of what's remaining in ARPA? I know we're probably close to spending all.
Sure.
Maybe you could just come out of the.
I think I will give you what you've already committed the funds to. That's all I can give you. So a lot of these things that you guys have been talking about, I don't have on any sheet. I have what has been passed by resolution. I'm more than happy to give that to you and tell you exactly what's left.
And the stuff in the works this month won't be on that sheet.
And things that have not been fully spent, they may not be ever fully spent until we get to a determination that, this project is completely done, maybe something. I mean, Gary's in the middle of doing HVAC repairs over at the historic post office. They're not done yet, but the funds have been, till he's done, and then he says, oh, I had $10,000 left over, Lynn, then we'll know there's $10,000 left over.
I think what I would be helpful is not necessarily knowing what's been spent, is what we've allocated, what we say we're gonna spend, so that we can look at the resolutions that the committees tonight have just approved, so we can see where potentially we are, if there is gonna maybe be enough just based on what's allocated, not what's unspent.
Yeah, that's what I have, is what's allocated, right?
Okay, that would be great.
No, I definitely can.
If you can get that information to the four people on
I
that.
think he wants it for the meeting tomorrow. You don't just meet for the ARPA committee.
Yeah, we should talk about it openly.
There's a lot.
I'm in the same boat.
I know.
Second source, 750 to 1 million. I don't know what we have left.
I don't know. We won't know until Lynn gives it to us.
Again, we've been sitting on $1 million for playground for 3 years, 2 years. Doesn't need to be there. There's more, lay in the dirt.
I thought the stuff that he wanted for Emerson Park, I thought maybe he was looking at what was earmarked there already, because there's not another 500,000 in the fund balance for that. The bridge and all that, so I wasn't sure what he was referring to. Okay.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to fund a vote for approximately $100,000 to fund that. So further discussion or comments?
I'd like to move to table that until we have this information. I would like to move to table that until we have this information.
The ARPA,
Yes,
and what bearing does the ARPA have on?
because if we happen to have some ARPA left and there's enough, then we could use the ARPA funds for the boat and not affect the budget.
Is there a second?
I'll second to table it.
I'll withdraw the motion if you want, whatever's easiest.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm either voting no against the resolution or yes on the tabling. I'm in support of the vote. I think we just might be able to tweak something a little bit for funding, that's all.
I'm not, yeah, and
I'm in very much support of the vote. It supports our community.
No discussion on tabling, so.
I'll withdraw.
You want to withdraw?
Yeah.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, I think that's the best way to go.
Yep. We'll have that information by tomorrow night.
Second. So, anything further?
No, I'm in support of it, but I think we gotta wait for our,
I'm in support of it too.
see what we have enough.
Volunteer drivers?
Hey, do you have anything?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that you'll, look on us and the sheriffs, we are purchasing 8 road patrol vehicles. We are purchasing 2 vans for the jail. One thing that we did remove from the budget was a request for $1 million to put a new roof on the jail. We're withdrawing that from the budget and are proposing instead that we should spend the capital reserve when that roof has to be replaced. So that's not included. The sheriff's budgets, both of them are up a lot for them. They had large salary increases. They had a lot of pressures on their contractual accounts for building maintenance. We included things, so that's where you can look over here. We have included things as some concrete work. Food service has gone up 120,000. The prescriptions for drugs have gone up 165,000. So there's just an awful lot of expenditures. They're up significantly, and I think you just need to pay attention to that. We did include $150,000 in some extra revenue this year for some opioid, some of the pass-through funds that the county had received to help offset some of the expenditures they've had to take on kind of as mandated services to provide these services to some of the inmates there. So that is kind of a new proposal to bring some of that revenue into our own budget to offset some of our own expenses that we had to take on recently. So that is new. The jail revenue is down a little bit, also because we just what the sheriff had, but we're hopeful always that they come out better, but that's really beyond his control. A lot of times we just had too many people in the jail. The beds have been full, so can't do a lot with that either. So it's just the jail is a very large budget, and it's mostly local share. There's not a lot of revenue in that area. So just to keep your eye on it, I guess is all I'm saying.
Just a quick question, Lynn, and it's more of a question. It says we moved the SRO positions to part-time line in the budget. Now,
Yeah.
I'm under and I could be wrong about this. Most of the SRO positions are funded through the school themselves.
Yes.
So I guess is this one of those housekeeping things?
Yeah, it just looks differently that we pull them out. They are the kind of the part-time staff instead of them having mixed in with all of the full-time road patrol and other staff. That's all. They do have revenue to offset it, definitely.
Thank you.
So where did without scrolling through to find the page, after taking the 7 million out, where did that leave us?
With what, the fund balance?
Yeah.
Is it 6.9, right?
Oh, it's 6.92
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well, I think at the end of 23, when you appropriate the $6.9 million, we'll have 21 million of unappropriated. And the range for our county is 16 to 24. So look at,
How much is in the other?
What?
We have 2 fund balances.
Well, the highway funds are gonna be even lower. They're both only estimated to be about 500,000 each. So, this is larger on the fund balance. Now, like I said, we're probably gonna have vacancies continuing. So that's why I don't normally spend whatever I have on this budgeted page of the fund balance. Sales tax is a crapshoot for anybody. I mean, that might, when one graph showed the last 2 years are anomalies that we're having so much sales tax coming over our budget. So I have budgeted, a significant increase from 27 million to 30 million, but I'm budgeting 3%, 3.5% growth in sales tax on what we actually receive this year and what does go to next year. But right now our sales tax is flat to what we received last year. So it might not go up next year. It might go up a little. I don't think it's going to go down. I mean, because you have inflation still, you have prices are up. I don't think you're selling a big drop, but we definitely have leveled between 22 and 23.
Inflation's down, just ask Washington.
Right. I mean, well, and at what point do people stop spending as much too, right? Like what's going to happen. So
Last year's budget was going to use just about 3 million or so of the fund balance.
Right, the year we're in.
6.9. You don't have any inkling as to how much of that 3 actually is going to get used?
Yeah, I do. I don't think we're going to really use any of it.
Oh.
Because of our vacancies we've had, and the sales tax is going to be $29 million. We budgeted 27. So we still are going to be over on that.
you're conservative, you're less conservative with sale tax than you were a year ago. You're taking.
Well, I was
more of the
conservative
risk.
last year too. I only budgeted 27 million, we're gonna get 29. I
Okay,
am upping the budget from 27 point something million to 30 million, 600,000.
That's still a
So I'm increasing it, we're gonna get 29. I did the growth on what I expect to get this year. I didn't do the growth on budget to budget. I said, let's say, what are we gonna get this year? We're gonna assume some growth still. You know, we could be, could come in at 32 million and then you're not gonna use this. But if we're budgeting 6.9, I would think we're gonna use half of that. I would not think that we're not going to. I mean, obviously, we had some we're gonna pay that Medicaid bill. It's up $1.6 million. We're paying it. Retirement contributions up $1 million. We're paying that too. I mean, those are not, oh, maybe things will turn out great and, won't happen. Those are set things. The homelessness is not slow. And at any point, I mean, Christine's been updating you all the time. That's our other big area. And then, like we said, the services at the jail, they're very expensive. I mean, and it's a mandated service. We have new union contracts. They're up. I mean, there's no denying that. Retirement contribution on a bigger number is a bigger number, right? I mean, so not only does the percentage go up, but the dollar amount it's calculated on. I mean, I will say for our health insurance, even though it has gone up we had a 9.5% increase in the rates for active employees. We did do some negotiating with the contracts and the cost did not go up. We're getting employees to share more in it. We also had another option that the PPO, and it sounds like, I don't even have that factoring in because I don't know who's picking it. So that will actually help save us some money when people do move into that. But for retirees, it's an added cost. They don't increase their percentage of participation in retirement. So when the rate goes up that much, it's costing the county a lot. So those are all kind of fixed things. It's really the personnel. We'll probably be under some in personnel. We're gonna have some vacancies, I'm sure, continuing in certain departments. And we do have all the positions, we budget them all. So that's where your little bit of, we probably won't spend this much, but we'll spend a chunk of it.
And then what about the Medicaid?
The Medicaid, it says up 1.6 million and we're gonna spend that.
So you don't think we've spent last year's allocation from the fund balance
Right.
at all?
I mean, I'm predicting the last 2 months. It's hard for me to know exactly what's gonna happen, but I don't think so. I mean, one of our revenue streams in DSS came in higher than expected. The sales tax is over budget. And we have had vacancies this year continuing. So we are under, because really basically with paying all those retro increases, we're not over budget. So.
Anybody else?
It's just one more thing for me. We all got to remember that our fund balance is taxpayers' money. If we don't use some of it and go within the percentage and raise taxes, the taxpayers are losing. That's $27 million of taxpayers' money that's sitting there. So what are we gonna keep adding to it, not take anything from it and raise taxes? That's wrong. It's just the wrong way to do it.
So it's actually 30 if we didn't use the 3 from last year.
Yep.
Well, no, I think we're gonna end at 28.
Any further comments, anybody? I guess I'd like to make a comment. One of the things that impressed me, I just checked on it today, is our increase in taxable property, which was 12%, I think you said. So I asked property services, how much of that is new growth? How much is new property? Well, the estimate that was given was maybe 1 or 2%. So in effect, we are raising everybody's taxes because we're all going to be paying more. Okay? You understand what I'm trying to say?
no, because I was.
Inflation basically has driven up the, and other factors such as Micron maybe has driven up the price of housing, okay?
Yep.
And it's the same unit that's there, but now it's assessed it more, so it's gonna be paying more money, more taxes.
But if I don't buy new property, my taxes aren't gonna go up, correct? If we pass
If
this and.
Yes, they will.
If what you
Your
own
house
goes up,
you'll pay more taxes.
Everybody who's had their assessment raised in the last year or so, according to the real property, that's what it is. It's a raise on the assessment. It's not, you can call it true value or whatever, but that's for realtors to work out, okay? So,
But if this tax increase goes at 2% and it's a tax rate reduction of 8.8,
mhm.
I'm not paying more county taxes. Correct?
I would guess, depends on what happened to your assessment.
It depends on your
Right, but-
assessment.
Right,
Not a minus 8.8 for everyone.
not for everyone, but
Exactly.
we were
A lot of
talking,
people are gonna be paying
I
more.
mean, some towns weren't taxed, they were only taxed at 70%.
right, but if
And then this year, they
Did a
went to
revale.
100%.
the city of Auburn's taxed at 100%, so, I mean, I'm just saying, this is a 2% increase, but my understanding is this is not a tax increase of 2% on every property in this county. It's
No.
actually reduced.
From what Jen explained it to me, she sent it to me in an email today. I asked Lynn to do that. And Jen, some property taxes will go up, others will go down.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yep.
Happens every year.
I think you made the statement that someone bought a house in my neighborhood and probably paid for it. There's more tax revenue because the
Well-
property's been going for a lot more money.
And there's towns in this county that if you look, all you gotta do is look at the, monthly, property sales. There's still some towns that are at 60, 70, even 80%. I mean, when they do a revale and they get up to 100%, those people are gonna get a shock
Mhm.
that are in a town that's only
Yeah.
at 65 or 70%, because 35% increase is gonna be a little bit, they're gonna be calling their
Oh, yeah.
town officials and calling them.
The same people have been lucky for all those years that it was that low.
And then there's towns that,
Some of,
in reality, you need to do a revale every 3 or 4 years to be
consistent.
Yeah.
consistent. So,
Some of those towns got caught with double reductions. They went from 100% 2 years ago to 80%, like 85% down to 70% in just 2 years because they didn't do that. And the market took off ridiculously. So there is going to be a lot of people. So the 550,000 people that moved out of the state will be joined by those working. People moving.
Other thing that is,
Kicking their ass.
set up, is, inflation. You know, sales tax, a lot of the growth in sales tax is inflation.
exactly.
You know, you're paying more for everything that you buy, except food maybe, and fuel oil for home heating.
That's right, that's right.
That's
right.
We're paying more for food,
Yeah,
a lot more.
that's where a lot of our money comes from, is sales tax.
And they leave that out of the pot that they mix up to tell you what inflation is. They leave out food and fuel, because if they put it back in, it wouldn't have just went from 3.7 to 3.2, because we're still at about 9.
But that kind of evens out because that does raise the sales tax, which helps us.
That's what
Well,
I'm trying to say, yeah.
yes,
Okay, I'm gonna shut up.
Hey, you reached your 30 words.
Okay, we need one resolution to adjourn.
What about the Health and Human Services Committee? Did you want
I thought you were gonna escape, didn't you?
That was a good effort.
We just did help.
Good try, then.
What to adjourn?
No, you can't, hon. You got HHS.
Got a health and human services to go through.
Office for the-
Right at the
Sorry.
Yeah, right. You know who
You
raised?
can all go now.
Okay,
good.
Hudson Human Services, please.
Thank you.
Really, I can just kind of go over this quickly. We have the Public Health Department. They've had some increase in some revenues. They have open-ended 36% state aid over their base grant, so when costs go up, we do increase the revenue some. Really, their local increase has been caused from the preschool special education program. That's really where we have the local sharing. They did ask for an additional position, a quality assurance position that was requested, and that was not included in the budget. For the mental health department, they do have an increase in their mental health fees. That's helping to offset some of their expenditures going up. They did increase a part-time position at the jail, but that was done earlier in 2023. So that just shows it's a new part-time expenditure there that wasn't there before. That's to help with some of their psychiatric needs at the jail. The other thing is we did maintain the budget of $125,000 for the psychiatric costs. The individuals placed with the criminal charges, I think Lauren was mentioning, they still have people placed there right now, so we've continued to keep the expenditure in there. It might even be higher than what we budgeted, but we just left it the same for right now.
And the increase in mental health has to do with the clinic operation and their billing, is that? And then the other part-time staff for the jail is outside of their overall clinic operation? Is that how it works?
Yes.
I mean, they're not looking at trying to put all those costs together. They have clinic operations and they don't do any billing
There's no billing in the jail.
So it's just the costs within their budget segregated out from their clinic.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, I mean, if the jail wasn't paying, the mental health services didn't provide it, the jail would have to pay for it some other way because they have to provide those services. So this is probably the most efficient and effective way to be working together to do that. The next is Office for the Aging. Pretty consistent in their department except for the expenditures for the senior nutrition program. That is up $245,000. It's really the cost of the meals and the pressure for the wait list for the services. So we can increase the budget there significantly.
Can I ask one more thing? This isn't just what the county's mandated to cover some of the grants and the money that they get. There's a portion of that as a county contribution. This is in addition to giving the first time for meals because we're running short. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure that I understand your question. We just increased, I'm just really pointing out that line in itself.
Is there a local share
$45,000
program now?
Yes. Yeah.
And there wasn't last year, or there was the year before?
We had some COVID money.
Yeah.
Had some different requirements.
Right, but the county gave 39,000 a couple of years ago, right, because to your mail program, we're asking for the same allocation or more this year?
More this year because costs have gone up.
Okay.
We did receive more funding. Get more funding, yes, to increase the county share.
Okay, so the county is contributing to the senior mail program.
Absolutely.
Has the qualifications for that gone down? I mean,
If you're over 60.
what qualifies you?
So it depends on whether you're doing the congregate meals or the home delivered meal program. But home delivered meals, there are some requirements about being homebound and unable to prepare meals. Or unable to shop, or any number of ways that it's not possible for you to have a nutritious diet. We'll note that we also get almost over $100,000 in donations from the participants in that program.
We'll be there soon, Andy.
And we took away the take.
I won't make it that long, trust me.
The next is social services. They haven't had a lot of big changes here. They have, a little bit of funds budgeted for some computers and a couple of vehicle replacements. On the second page here, I've already mentioned that the big increase was in their Medicaid. That was a loss of the federal funding from the state. And unfortunately, even though they said it was going to phase in over 3 years, it really didn't. It ended up hitting us almost all in 1 year. So I guess the good news is it won't go up really at all, 25. We're going to be planning out, absorbing it kind of all at once, a $1.6 million increase. The safety net spending, that's for the homeless people where we have a local share. The local share is increasing by $600,000 in the budget. Reimbursement's only 29%, so it's not very good. There is another housekeeping adjustment I need here for the Youth Bureau. They had no significant changes. This was going in my favor. I accidentally budgeted a part-time person. It was a typo. I typed in 10,088. So I'd like to have a motion to remove that from the budget and we can reduce the sales tax the opposite way.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Carried.
We'll put that on the boat, right?
So I got 90 more thousand to get and I've got my boat.
I get it. Can you go back, please, to the safety net spending for homeless housing expense. We came up with base.
Oh, no,
How do
you're
we
right.
come up
I'm
with that
sorry.
number?
All right, timeout. We gotta redo that, 'cause
I'm sorry,
Christina's not on ways.
I couldn't make that motion, I apologize.
Someone else.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Yeah, whatever.
Then they're done that, that's out of it.
I love her enthusiasm though.
Now we gotta vote on it again, man.
Okay, once more. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's carried.
I think it was one tonight.
So I wanted to revisit how we came up with this.
Didn't want to say anything. Okay. Somebody have a
Pulling up a
question?
spreadsheet.
It's okay, yeah.
We do it based on activity and the number of caseload that we have currently.
That's what I was wondering, if we based off like this year.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What was the question?
How did you
So
get?
like
to the
last
600,000?
year in 2022, the average caseload was 403 with an average cost per case of $782. In 2023 through August, I haven't updated it since then, the caseload is 434. That's 30 cases extra a month. And the cost is now $893. So the cost per case has gone up $100 a month also. So we're actually estimating it to pretty much keep flat.
Right.
So we're gonna be over budget in 23. And so that's really the increase that we're putting in for 24.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments?
Just wanted to tell you how much I love being here.
What you know what?
I'll make my usual
Oh.
comment.
I love them.
I hope someday, not just here, but in this state and across this country, we figure out why we have more homeless people, why we have more mental illness, why we have more of all of this things, and solve those problems rather than government just keep throwing money at it as those problems continue to expand and get bigger and bigger. Makes zero sense.
Any other comments?
Hey, my last time to say that, so
It's a good question, though. Somebody could figure it out, they'd be rich.
I could go back next year and say it if you want me to.
Can always visit.
That's a public meeting.
I think we're done this time.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for sticking around.
I appreciate it.